Story 1. You're just a phase. I'll settle down when I'm done having fun, my GF said. Good to know, I replied. Then I settled myself in a way that left her out completely and watched her lose her mind. Hey Reddit, this happened a few months ago. Thought I should share it with you guys since a lot might relate. Here's what went down. I, 26 male, was dating this girl Brooke, 24 female, for about 2.5 years. Met her through my buddy's girlfriend at some rooftop party downtown. She was one of those girls who could walk into any room, and suddenly everyone's gravitating toward her. Super outgoing, always down for whatever. Total opposite of my more chill personality. First year was honestly pretty great. She got me out of my comfort zone, dragged me to concerts I never would have gone to, made me try sushi. Still hate it, but whatever. I started going to yoga classes because she was into it. Yeah, I was that guy doing downward dog next to a bunch of soccer moms at 6 a.m. Don't judge me. My dad Jim thought the whole thing was hilarious. Yoga? Really? What's next? Juice cleanses. He's been my best friend since my mom died when I was 12. Raised me alone, taught me plumbing, never remarried because he said one woman trying to change him was enough for one lifetime. He's got this way of saying exactly what everyone's thinking, but too polite to say out loud. But around year 2, things started shifting. She'd disappear entire weekends for girls' trips that seemed to happen every other week. Started following a bunch of festival influencers on Instagram, always talking about this amazing party in Vegas, or that underground music thing in Miami. Made friends with this crew who were all about that live your best life energy. You know the type, always posting stories with those generic motivational quotes over sunset pics. The ringleader was her friend Rebecca. This chick was like the devil on Brooke's shoulder, except she wasn't even subtle about it. Rebecca was 26, working some vague marketing job that apparently paid enough for her to hit up every major festival on the West Coast. She had this way of making every conversation about how Brooke was too young to be tied down and needed to have fun in her 20s. Dad met Rebecca exactly once at a barbecue and immediately sized her up. That one's trouble. She's got dead eyes and the personality of a motivational poster. He wasn't wrong. Rebecca would text Brooke constantly about parties, trips, opportunities that were too good to pass up. Brooke would get these messages and suddenly our plans would change. Date night became, oh, Rebecca found this amazing warehouse party? Or, Rebecca's friend knows a promoter who can get us into this exclusive thing. The conversation that nuked everything happened 4 months ago. Just a random Thursday night, we're eating the stir-fry I made. Yeah, I cook, fight me. And I bring up my friend Alan's wedding in October. Wanna be my plus one? It's gonna be pretty fun, open bar, good music. Alan's been planning this thing forever. She literally laughed. Not like a cute giggle, but this full-on laugh like I just asked her to help me move a couch. October? Dude, that's like 5 months away. Who knows where we'll be then? I put my fork down. What do you mean where we'll be? She took a sip of her drink, this $18 bottle she insisted we needed because it was organic or some shit, and looked at me like I was being dense. Ryan, let's be real here. This is fun and all, but I'm not ready to settle down yet. I'm 24, I want to travel, meet new people, and experience things. I don't want to be tied down planning weddings and doing coupley stuff. So what am I to you exactly? And here's where it gets good. She actually sat there and thought about it. Took another sip of her drink like she was contemplating world peace. You're comfortable. Safe. You're like a security blanket. You're the kind of guy I'll come back to when I'm ready for all that serious stuff. But right now, you're kind of just a phase while I figure out what I really want. Just a phase. I felt like I was in that scene from Goodfellas where Henry's in the restaurant and everything goes quiet. A phase? Don't take it wrong. It's not you personally. I'm just not done having fun yet. When I'm like 28 or 29, I'll be ready for the whole settling down thing. Marriage, kids, whatever boring shit people do. And you assume I'll just wait around. She shrugged like we were talking about what to watch on Netflix. Why wouldn't you? We're good together. I just need to get this party phase out of my system first. You'll still be here doing your plumber thing, making decent money, being stable. That's what you're good at. I was literally a bookmark in her life story. Something she could close and come back to when she finished the fun chapters. Good to know where I stand, I said. Don't be dramatic. I'm being honest. Most guys would appreciate that instead of me lying and stringing them along. You're right. I do appreciate the honesty. She smiled like she'd just negotiated world peace. Went back to scrolling through Instagram, looking at some influencers' Bali vacation pics. See? You get it. You're mature like that. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. But first, I called my dad. She said, "What now?" His voice was flat, which meant he was pissed. Dad doesn't do emotional outbursts. He gets quiet and dangerous. I'm just a phase, a placeholder until she's ready for the real thing. Well, congratulations. You just got handed the best information you could possibly get. Most people waste years figuring out what you just learned in one conversation. What do you mean? She told you exactly who she is and what you mean to her. Believe her. Now act accordingly. If I was just a phase, a placeholder until she was ready for serious stuff, then I'd start acting like it. No drama, no begging, just cold, practical adjustments. Started that weekend. She wanted to hit up some warehouse party downtown that Rebecca had found. Come on, it'll be amazing. The DJ is supposed to be incredible. Nah, I'm good. Have fun though. She was surprised but pleased. More freedom for her to do whatever. Finally, I was starting to think you were getting clingy. What she didn't know was that I'd started using those weekends for something way more productive. First thing I did was stop investing in our relationship. Not in some petty revenge way, just practically. Stopped buying groceries for her place. Why stock someone's fridge if you're temporary? Stopped meeting her party friends because honestly, why network with people I'd never see again once she moved on? She didn't notice at first because she was too busy living her best life with Rebecca as her hype woman. Every weekend was some new adventure. Pool parties, music festivals, spontaneous road trips to Austin or Nashville. Her Instagram became this highlight reel of shots at rooftop bars and dancing at venues I'd never heard of. Meanwhile, I quietly started rebuilding my life. Signed up for that woodworking class I'd been putting off for years. Turns out I'm actually pretty decent with a table saw. Joined this hiking group that met Saturday mornings, when she was usually hungover from whatever she'd done Friday night. Started volunteering at the local community center, teaching basic coding to kids. But the big move was the house hunt. I'd been saving money for years from my plumbing jobs, always telling myself I was waiting for the right time or for us to be ready. Well, if there was no us in my future, why was I waiting? Found this incredible fixer-upper in Riverside. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a huge backyard, needed serious work, but had amazing bones. Built in 1954, original hardwood floors, this sick mid-century fireplace. The kitchen was straight out of the 70s and the bathroom had avocado green tiles, but I could see the potential. The inspection turned up some interesting surprises. Original copper plumbing that was actually in better shape than most modern houses I'd worked on. The electrical panel needed a complete overhaul, but everything else was good. Foundation hadn't shifted an inch in 70 years. Dad came with me to look at it. He walked around for about 10 minutes, checked the foundation, looked at the electrical panel, and tested the water pressure. Roof's solid, the foundation's good, electrical needs some work, but nothing major. You'd be stupid not to buy it. Think I can handle all the renovation work? Kid, I've been teaching you this stuff since you were 8. Plus, I'm not dead yet. I can still swing a hammer. The previous owners had been this elderly couple who'd lived there for 40 years. They'd kept everything original but maintained it perfectly. Even left behind the workshop in the garage, complete with a vintage workbench and tools from the 50s. Dad nearly had a heart attack when he saw it. These tools are worth more than your down payment. Put in an offer without saying a word to Brooke. She was at Coachella with Rebecca, posting stories of herself covered in glitter, dancing to DJs I'd never heard of. Got the text that my offer was accepted while she was sending me videos of some art installation shaped like a giant cactus. Miss you, babe. This is incredible. Can't wait to tell you about it. Have fun, I texted back, then went back to reviewing the inspection report with Dad. So when are you going to tell Princess Party Girl about the house? He asked. Why would I? She's not going to be living in it. Dad grinned. That's my boy. The hiking group was where everything started clicking into place. Every Saturday at 7 a.m., we'd meet at different trailheads around the city. Way better than sleeping off hangovers until 2 p.m. like I used to do when Brooke was out partying. That's where I met Sophie. She's a personal trainer, 23, has this really dry sense of humor that caught me off guard. First conversation we had was about trail mix. Whoever decided raisins belong in trail mix clearly hates joy, she said, picking them out of her bag. Finally, someone with sense. Raisins are just disappointed grapes. Oh man, that's dark. I like it. We started hiking together more often, just as friends at first since I was technically still with Brooke, even though she'd made it clear I was just holding her place in line. Sophie helped me pick out tile for the house renovation. Turns out she has really good taste and knows way more about home improvement than someone who spends all day at a gym should. Why do you know so much about grout? I asked while we were at Home Depot. My dad's a contractor. Spent summers working for him instead of going to camp. Learned more about plumbing than most guys I train. She was right. The first day Sophie came to help with the house, Dad was there installing new kitchen cabinets. I was nervous about them meeting, but I shouldn't have been. You must be Sophie, Dad said, not looking up from his level. Ryan's told me about you. All good things, I hope. He said you have opinions about tile. That's either very good or very bad. Sophie laughed. Depends on the tile. But yeah, I have opinions about most things. I like her already, Dad said to me, then turned back to Sophie. Can you hand me that drill? And tell me, what's your position on the subway tile? Timeless but overused. Good for resale value, boring for actual living. Yep, I like her. Sophie's construction knowledge was legit. She showed up the next weekend with her own tool belt and immediately spotted a problem with the kitchen layout that would have cost me thousands to fix later. You can't put the dishwasher there unless you reroute that gas line. See how it runs right behind where you want the cabinet. Dad was impressed. I was starting to fall for her. Meanwhile, Brooke's party phase was escalating. Her Instagram posts were getting more wild. Photos with random guys at festivals, always captioned stuff like, making memories with new friends, or life's too short to say no to adventures. Rebecca would comment things like, yes, queen. This is what your 20s should look like. Dad saw one of her posts when I was scrolling through my phone during a lunch break. God, she looks like she's about to OD on attention. What's her endgame here? I don't think she has one. Rebecca's got her convinced this is what happiness looks like. The moment that really sealed it for me happened at the community center. I was teaching this 12-year-old kid named Diego basic Python, and his mom came to pick him up. You're really good with kids, she said. Do you have any of your own? Not yet. Someday, though. Your girlfriend's lucky. Guys who are good with kids are rare. I almost laughed. My girlfriend was currently somewhere in the Nevada desert with Rebecca, probably rolling on Molly, explicitly not wanting kids or anything domestic like commitment. That night I texted Brooke. We need to talk when you get back. Ooh, sounds serious. You're not about to propose, are you? Because that would be super awkward. With like 5 laughing emojis. Yeah, definitely not. Brooke got back from Burning Man 3 days later, looking like she'd been through a sandstorm. Sunburned, exhausted, smelling like patchouli and regret. She came over to my apartment. Still hadn't mentioned the house. Rebecca had apparently stayed in Vegas for some after-party that was too epic to miss. So what's this big serious talk? Please tell me you're not about to get all weird and clingy. I had such an amazing time and I don't want to kill the... Actually, I wanted to thank you. She looked confused. Thank me for what? For being honest about what you think of me. It really clarified things. Now she looked uncomfortable. I didn't mean it in a bad way. I know exactly how you meant it. You want to have fun now? Settle down later. I respect that. But I've realized I don't want to be anyone's phase. So let's end this clean. Wait, what? You're breaking up with me? We're breaking up with each other. You want to be free? I want to be valued. Win-win. She was genuinely shocked. This wasn't how the script was supposed to go. I was supposed to wait around like a golden retriever, just happy when she came home. But we're good together. We work. I mean, you're perfect for me eventually. Eventually. Keyword there. You're totally overreacting. I just need some time to figure things out. God, you're being so dramatic about this. Take all the time you need, just not on my clock. This is ridiculous. You know what? Fine. But don't come crawling back when you realize you threw away something good. Most girls wouldn't even be honest about this stuff. She left angry and confused. Within an hour, she was posting Instagram stories with quotes about knowing your worth and men who can't handle strong, independent women who know what they want. Fine by me. I had crown molding to install. I called Dad afterward to let him know it was officially over. How'd she take it? About as well as you'd expect. Lots of dramatic quotes about men who can't handle honesty. Good. Are you coming over tomorrow? That crown molding isn't going to install itself. After the breakup, Brooke went into full party overdrive. Her Instagram became this non-stop highlight reel of clubs, festivals, and adventures. Every post was about her newfound freedom and living authentically. Meanwhile, I was working on my new house. The hiking group became my weekly therapy session. Sophie and I were hanging out more, just as friends, but good friends. She helped me pick out a new refrigerator when my ancient one finally died. We spent an entire Saturday at appliance stores arguing about whether stainless steel or black stainless was better. Black stainless shows fingerprints less, she said, but regular stainless steel matches the dishwasher I already bought. Fair point. Also, you actually bought a dishwasher before you had a working kitchen. That's very optimistic of you. Dad was there too, of course. He's been optimistic about dumb stuff his whole life. At least this time it's useful. Sophie started spending more time at the house, helping with projects and just hanging out. Dad treated her like she'd been part of the family for years, which was his way of showing approval without actually saying it. Sophie, can you hold this level while I mark these spots? Dad asked during a kitchen renovation session. Sure thing, Jim. Good. Ryan, your girlfriend has steadier hands than you do. She's not my girlfriend yet, I said. Yet. I heard that. Sophie, you hear that? He said yet. I heard it, Sophie said, grinning. Excellent. Now both of you shut up and help me install this cabinet. But apparently Rebecca was keeping tabs on my social media and reporting back to Brooke. I'd post normal stuff, pictures from hiking, the kids at the coding camp, my attempt at making homemade pasta. Epic failure, but hilarious. This bothered Brooke because it meant I was doing fine without her. Rebecca started commenting on my posts with passive-aggressive shit like, wow, someone's really embracing the single life. Good for you. And hope you're not just posting the highlights while you're actually miserable inside. I blocked her after the third comment. Then Brooke started showing up places. The coffee shop I went to Sunday mornings. The gym. She even showed up at the community center claiming she wanted to volunteer. Ryan, wow, funny running into you here. Hey Brooke, here to volunteer with the kids? Yeah, totally. I love kids. Want to give back, you know? Show them there's more to life than just working all the time. The coordinator started asking about her availability. Suddenly she remembered she had a trip to Mexico planned with Rebecca, then a festival in Colorado, then a girls' weekend in Vegas. She never came back. But the real explosion happened when she found out about the house. Not from me, from our mutual friend Chris who'd helped me move my couch. My phone blew up. You bought a house? When were you going to tell me? I can't believe you made that decision without me. We talked about buying a house together. That last one made me actually laugh out loud. We had never, not once, talked about buying anything together. She'd specifically said she wasn't ready to settle down. I finally responded, I bought a house for my future. You made it clear you weren't part of that future. Why would I consult you? Because we were together for 2.5 years. That's a huge decision. Were. Past tense. Your choice, remember? You're being such a petty asshole about this. It's not like I said I never wanted to be with you. You said I was a phase, a placeholder. Those were your exact words. She tried calling like 15 times. I was busy helping Sophie plant tomatoes in my new backyard. Turns out she knows everything about gardening too. That night she went nuclear on social media. Posted this long rant about men who make major life decisions in secret and can't communicate properly. Rebecca, from a new fake account, was all over the comments section backing her up, calling me manipulative, and clearly threatened by Brooke's independence. Her whole squad rallied around her saying I was shady and deceptive. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who told me I was just a phase was mad that I planned a future without her. Things stayed quiet for about a month. I was living in the house, still doing renovations, but it was totally livable. The vegetable garden was actually producing food. Life was genuinely good. Sophie and I had started dating officially. We took it slow, but it was different from day one. She talked about future plans like I was obviously going to be there. Made dinner reservations 2 weeks out without hedging. It was weird how refreshing that was. Dad loved watching us together. This is what normal looks like, he told me one day while we were installing new baseboards. No drama, no games, just two people who actually like each other. It's nice, I said. Nice. That's the best you can do? It's not nice. It's healthy. There's a difference. Then Brooke's 25th birthday hit, and apparently it triggered some kind of existential crisis. Her Instagram shifted from party pics to inspirational quotes about new chapters and growth. The post got more philosophical, less about shots and more about authentic living. She texted me, Hey, I've been doing a lot of thinking. Can we talk? I was curious enough to say yes. We met at this neutral coffee shop downtown, the kind of place with exposed brick and overpriced lattes. She looked different, less party girl, more tired, like she'd been running on fumes for months and finally ran out of gas. Thanks for meeting me. I know things ended weird between us. What's up, Brooke? I've been thinking about what I really want. Like, really thinking. And I realized I was being immature before. I'm ready now. For what? To settle down. To be serious. I got all the party stuff out of my system. I'm ready for the next chapter. With you. She said it like she was doing me a favor. Like I should be grateful she'd finally decided I was worth her time. So, because you're ready now, I should just be available? We were good together, Ryan. You know we were. I just needed time to grow up and experience things. Now I have, and I know what I want. And what made you think I was just sitting around waiting? Because you loved me. I know you did. That doesn't just disappear. Plus, let's be real. You're a plumber. It's not like you have tons of options. Even now, she was talking down to me. You're right. I did love you. Past tense. You told me I was just a phase, so I acted accordingly. I didn't mean it like that. You meant it exactly like that. You wanted to party and have fun without me, then settle for me when you were done. Like I was a retirement plan. She started crying. Not sad tears. Frustrated tears. So what, you're punishing me? Is that what the house was about? To hurt me? The house is about building my future. A future you explicitly said you didn't want to be part of yet. I took you at your word. I saw you with that girl on Instagram. The trainer. Is this about her? Sophie. Her name is Sophie. And no, this isn't about her. It's about me choosing to be with someone who doesn't see me as something to settle for later. That hit home. She physically flinched. I never said settle for you. Settling down with me was what you'd do when you were done having fun. Your exact words. That makes me the safe, boring choice for after the party ends. So that's it? 3 years together, and you just move on like I meant nothing? 2.5 years. And you moved on first. You just expected me to stay in place while you did. She tried one last desperate play. What if I was pregnant? I almost walked out right there. Are you? Number. But what if I was? Okay, even if you were. What makes you think I'll believe it's mine? You're such an asshole. I hope you know that. I was honest with you. And this is how you repay me? She left angry. Blocked me on everything. Posted more quotes about men who can't handle personal growth, and sometimes people show their true colors when you're vulnerable. That evening, I was at the house with Dad and Sophie, installing new light fixtures in the dining room. I told them about the coffee shop meeting. She actually said you don't have options because you're a plumber? Sophie asked. Word for word. Dad put down his screwdriver. That girl has no idea what she just walked away from twice. What do you mean twice? Once when she decided you were a phase. Again today when she assumed you'd be grateful for her scraps. He picked up his screwdriver again. Her loss? Sophie, can you flip that breaker back on? Sure thing, Jim. Good. Now let's see if Ryan wired this right or if we need to call a real electrician. Brooke's rejection apparently sent her into a complete spiral. According to mutual friends, she became obsessed with proving I was making a mistake. Rebecca was feeding into this hard, constantly telling her that I was obviously rebounding, and that Sophie was just a gym bunny who doesn't know the real you like Brooke does. The harassment started small. Brooke would drive by the house when I was working in the yard. She'd sit in her car across the street for like 20 minutes, just watching. I ignored it at first, figured she'd get bored and move on. Dad noticed first. Blue Honda keeps driving by. Same one's been parked across the street 3 times this week. That's Brooke. Stalking now? Classy. He didn't look up from the deck railing he was sanding. Want me to go have a chat with her? Nah, she'll get bored eventually. If you say so, but if she escalates, I'm not asking permission next time. Then Rebecca started following me around town. She'd show up at the grocery store I went to, the coffee shop, always with her phone out pretending to be casual while obviously taking pictures. She'd report back to Brooke about everything, who I was with, what I was buying, even what I was wearing. Rebecca got bold enough to accidentally bump into Sophie at the gym during peak hours. She made a huge scene apologizing, loud enough for everyone to hear, then started this fake conversation. Oh my God, you're Ryan's new girl. He's such a catch. I can't believe Brooke let him go. She's been such a mess since the breakup. Like, seriously struggling. Maybe you could talk to him about giving her another chance? Sophie handled it like a pro. I think Brooke's struggles are between her and her therapist, not me and my boyfriend. Rebecca's face went red. Things escalated when Brooke and Rebecca figured out Sophie's schedule. They started showing up at the gym where she worked, coincidentally needing day passes to work out. They'd make loud comments about how some people just go for the first rebound they find, and how it's sad when men can't handle being alone. Sophie handled it better than I did. They're just jealous. Brooke had something good and threw it away. Now she's seeing what she lost. But it got worse. Rebecca started messaging Sophie on Instagram with fake concern. Hey girl, just wanted to give you a heads up about Ryan. He's super controlling and manipulative. Ask him about how he made Brooke feel like she couldn't have friends or go out. He's just putting on an act for you. Sophie showed me the messages. She's really trying hard to break us up. What did you tell her? That she should find a hobby that doesn't involve other people's relationships. Dad's response was more direct. Block her. Block them both. And if they show up at your work again, call the police. Brooke and Rebecca doubled down. They started spreading rumors to mutual friends about how I was love-bombing Sophie and how they were worried about her because I was showing all the red flags of an abuser. The same tactics abusers actually use. isolating their target by making everyone else seem untrustworthy. The flowers started appearing on my porch 2 weeks later. No cards, just flowers. Every few days, new ones would show up. I threw them away, but they kept coming. Secret admirer? Dad asked, seeing me carry another arrangement to the trash. Brooke, she's losing her mind. No, she's trying to make you lose yours. Don't let her. Then Sophie started getting packages at work. Designer workout clothes, expensive supplements, gift cards to fancy restaurants, all anonymous, but we both knew who was sending them. It was like Brooke was trying to buy Sophie's loyalty or prove she had money to throw around. The final straw was when Rebecca called Sophie's boss, claiming I was harassing Sophie and that she was concerned for her safety. Sophie's boss had to sit her down and ask if everything was okay at home. It was humiliating for her and potentially damaging to her career. That night, I called a lawyer, explained the situation, the stalking, the harassment of Sophie, the attempts to damage her reputation. He said I had enough for a restraining order against both of them. Document everything, he said. Save all the messages. Take pictures of the flowers. Get statements from witnesses. This is textbook stalking and harassment. Filed the paperwork Monday morning. Brooke and Rebecca were served Tuesday afternoon. The restraining order required them to stay 500 feet away from me, my house, my workplace, and Sophie. Dad was installing a new kitchen backsplash when I got home with the paperwork. How'd it go? Restraining orders in effect. They've been served. Good. Should have done it weeks ago. Think it'll actually stop them? If they have any sense, yeah. If not, well, they'll learn the hard way that judges don't care about your feelings. For about a week, it was quiet. I thought maybe the legal reality check had finally gotten through to them. I was wrong. Last Friday night, I was at home working on refinishing the back deck when I heard someone on my front porch. It was almost 11 p.m., so I figured it was a delivery that got dropped off late. Opened the door to find Brooke sitting on my porch steps, clearly drunk, surrounded by about 24 roses. She was crying, makeup running down her face, holding a drink. Ryan, please, I just want to talk. I love you. I've always loved you. Rebecca was wrong. I should have never listened to her. I want to come home. Brooke, you can't be here. You have a restraining order. I don't care about that stupid paper. This is my home too. We can work this out. She tried to stand up and stumbled. The bottle fell and shattered on my concrete steps. You need to leave. Now I'm calling the police. No, please, just listen to me. Sophie doesn't know you like I do. She's just using you for your house and your money. I'm the one who really loves you. I already had my phone out, dialing 911. Brooke heard me and started panicking. Ryan, no, please don't do this. I'll leave, okay? I'll go right now. But she was too drunk to even walk properly. She fell trying to get off the porch, scraped her knee, and started crying harder. The cops showed up about 10 minutes later. 2 officers, both professional, but clearly not surprised by the situation. Sir, can you explain what's happening here? I showed them the restraining order, explained the situation. Brooke was still on my lawn, now lying in the grass, crying about how she'd made a mistake and just wanted to fix things. Ma'am, you're under arrest for violating a restraining order. You have the right to remain silent. They cuffed her and put her in the back of the patrol car. One officer stayed to take my statement, while the other called for someone to come clean up the broken glass. Has she contacted you since the restraining order was issued? The officer asked. No direct contact, but she's been driving by the house. I have security camera footage. We'll need copies of that. This probably won't be her only violation. The officer's partner came back with a tow truck driver. Turns out Brooke had parked her car illegally on my street before stumbling up to my porch. They were impounding it, along with arresting her. The tow truck guy was pulling her Honda onto his flatbed, while she watched from the back seat, still crying. That's going to cost her at least $300 to get out of impound, the cop said. Plus bail, plus court costs, expensive night. I watched them drive away with Brooke in the back seat, still crying, probably facing a night in jail and additional charges. Dad showed up about 20 minutes later. I'd called him after the cops left. You okay? He asked, looking at the rose petals scattered across my porch. Yeah, I'm fine. Just glad it's finally over. Is it, though? Over, I mean. Has to be. She's looking at real jail time now. Sophie arrived a few minutes later. Dad and I were sweeping up glass while she picked up rose petals. You know what's weird? Sophie said. I almost feel sorry for her. She had something real with you, and she threw it away because her friend convinced her she could do better. Rebecca didn't convince her of anything, Dad said. She just gave Brooke permission to act on what she already wanted. Rebecca was just the excuse. I looked around my house. The kitchen I'd renovated, the garden we'd planted, the life I'd built. Sophie was right. Brooke had traded something real for something that looked good on social media. Her loss? I said. I'm exactly where I want to be. Dad finished sweeping up the last of the glass. Should have listened to me from the beginning. I told you that girl was trouble. Yeah, you did. Course I did. It's my job to spot the crazy ones before they waste your time. Although, to be fair, this one wasted way more of her time than yours. Brooke was right about one thing. She wasn't done having fun yet. Turns out neither was I. I just found a better definition of it. One that didn't involve waiting around for someone to decide I was worth settling for. The best part? It wasn't even revenge. It was just building the life I wanted with people who wanted to be in it right now, not after they finished their phase. Brooke wanted me to be a phase in her life, something she'd come back to when the party ended. Instead, she became exactly what she designated me as. Just a phase. One I'd grown out of. She's probably getting booked right now, facing charges for violating a restraining order. Me? I'm in my house with my garden, with someone who doesn't see me as a placeholder for when she's ready to get serious. Dad's here making sure I don't do anything stupid, and Sophie's here because she wants to be. All right, Dad said, putting the broom away. Crisis over. Sophie, you staying for dinner? I'm making my famous chili. Is it actually famous? Sophie asked. Depends on your definition of famous. Ryan's been eating it for 20 years and he's not dead yet. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement, I said. You want a ringing endorsement? It's better than anything you cook. He's not wrong, Sophie said. See? She gets it. I like this one, Ryan. Don't screw it up. I won't. Good. Now, let's go inside before the neighbors start talking about the crazy woman who got arrested in your front yard. Funny how that worked out. Story 2. My brother knocked up my wife, and Mom helped them hide it. 6 months later, they want me to raise the kid and pay brother's legal bills. Hey everyone. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Sup, Reddit. Never thought I'd be posting here, but I need to get this shit off my chest. Got completely blindsided by the 3 people who were supposed to have my back, my wife, my brother, and my own mother. Here's how it all went down. I, 28 male, have been working as a software engineer for the last 5 years. Started at a small tech startup and worked my way up to senior developer. We build enterprise solutions, payment systems, CRM platforms, that kind of stuff. Not the sexiest work in the world, but it paid enough for me to buy a decent 2-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood 2 years ago. Bought it before marriage. My company might not have the name recognition of Google or Apple, but we're solid. 90K base with annual bonuses that usually hit around 15 to 20K. Health benefits that actually cover things. 401K matching. The kind of stability most guys my age are still dreaming about. My boss, Chester, 42 male, took me under his wing when I first started. He's this old-school coder who transitioned to management, but still keeps his hands dirty with code. He didn't just teach me coding best practices. He showed me how to navigate company politics, how to negotiate my salary, got me an extra $12,000 on my last promotion, and how to manage client expectations without promising the impossible. Then my wife, now ex, Megan, 26 female, walked into my life at a friend's house party 3 years back. She was this gorgeous blonde who worked as a nurse at the local hospital, specializing in pediatric care. We had this instant chemistry that everyone noticed, one of those connections that feels like you've known someone for years. What first caught my attention was how she lit up talking about her job. Not just surface-level stuff, but the technical aspects of pediatric care. She could explain complex medical procedures in a way that made sense even to a tech guy like me. Smart, dedicated, and invested in her career. Exactly what I was looking for. We dated for a year before I proposed. She cried, said yes, and we had a small wedding at her parents' church. Just 50 or so people, close friends and family. I spent 2 months' salary on the ring, 2.1 carat diamond with a platinum band. For context, my younger brother Ed, 24 male, has always been the golden child. 4 years younger, but somehow always the center of attention. Better looking, better with people, better at charming our mom into getting whatever he wanted. He played varsity baseball in high school. I was the chess club kid who built websites in my free time. Classic mama's boy situation. I was the quiet, responsible one who worked hard but never quite measured up in mom's eyes. Dad was always fair with both of us, but Ed was definitely mom's favorite. That dynamic never changed. The contrast between us was almost comical at family gatherings. Thanksgiving 3 years ago, Ed showed up 2 hours late, no side dish like he promised, but with some girl he'd met the night before. Instead of being annoyed, Mom fussed over both of them while I had been there since morning helping prep the turkey. Dad just shook his head and poured me an extra glass of water when Mom wasn't looking. Dad's a retired mechanical engineer. Logical, methodical, plays by the rules. He taught me how to change oil in my first car, how to fix a leaky faucet, all that practical dad stuff. He never understood my coding work, but respected that I'd found a solid career. Mom's a former elementary school teacher who retired early when Dad's engineering firm took off. Always had a soft spot for Ed, who she called her sensitive artistic soul. After college, I went straight into coding, while Ed bounced around between jobs. He'd work somewhere for a few months, get bored, then quit. Always had some story about toxic management. Meanwhile, his credit card bills somehow became Mom and Dad's problem. Twice, I bailed him out of minor legal trouble, once for driving with an expired license, and once for trespassing at an ex-girlfriend's apartment. Cost me nearly $3,000, which he promised to pay back as soon as things turned around. Eventually, I helped him get a position at my company in the sales department. Chester, my boss, was hesitant. He'd met Ed at our company Christmas party the year before, and wasn't impressed. But I vouched for him, said I'd keep him in line. Ed had the charm for it, and I figured having him there would give him some stability. Plus, family looks out for family, right? The sales job at our company came with a $65,000 base plus commission. Not bad for someone with Ed's spotty resume. I spent 3 weekends coaching him on our products, the industry terminology, told him this was his chance to build something real. He seemed grateful, said all the right things. Chester gave me one of those, "I hope you know what you're doing" looks when I introduced them. Megan and I settled into married life pretty well. Our relationship wasn't Hollywood movie material, but it was solid. We talked about starting a family maybe in a year or two. I spent weekends working on the house, installed a new kitchen island, built a deck in the backyard, all that homeowner stuff. Megan decorated the place, making it look like something out of those home design magazines. I put about $20,000 into home improvements over that first year. New hardwood flooring in the living room, upgraded the master bathroom with a rainfall shower and heated floors, landscaped the backyard. Every penny I put in was raising the property value, plus giving us a place we both loved. The first year was good. We had our routines: Sunday morning pancakes, Wednesday date nights, the occasional weekend trip to her parents' lake house. We hosted game nights with friends, took a cooking class together, all that couple stuff you're supposed to do. We seemed happy. About a year in, I got assigned to a major project at work, rebuilding the payment system for a big hospital chain. The irony isn't lost on me now. I was working longer hours, often coming home after Megan was asleep. Weekend work became normal. The project was supposed to last 3 months but stretched to 6. I started missing those Sunday pancakes, those Wednesday date nights. The project was a career maker. Successfully implementing a new payment system for a $2 billion company would put me on the fast track for a senior architect position. Bigger salary, stock options, more control over which projects I worked on. I explained all this to Megan, and she seemed to understand. She even brought me dinner at the office a few times during those first weeks of overtime. During this time, Megan made a new friend at work, Alexis, this travel nurse from Seattle who was doing a 6-month rotation at our hospital. Alexis was everything Megan wasn't. Single, carefree, kinda wild. Suddenly, Megan was going out for girls' nights with Alexis and coming home with stories about clubs I didn't know existed in our city. I was too busy with my project to really notice how much things were changing. Things started feeling weird about 4 months before things imploded, right around when my big project was wrapping up. The system was finally launched, and I was looking forward to getting back to normal life with Megan. But somewhere along the way, normal had shifted. Megan's schedule got unpredictable. She'd always been consistent with her hospital shifts, 3 12-hour days, then 4 days off. But suddenly she was picking up extra shifts and going out with co-workers more often. When I asked, she'd say the hospital was short-staffed or that her friend Amber was going through a breakup and needed support. I checked our bank statements one night and noticed Megan had been withdrawing $200 to $300 in cash every week for the past 2 months. When I asked about it casually, she said something vague about preferring cash for small purchases and girls' nights out. Made sense on the surface, but it was new behavior. I tried to reconnect, suggested we take a weekend trip to celebrate my project being done. She said she couldn't get the time off. I offered to cook her favorite dinner. She texted last minute saying Alexis needed her help with something. A rational person might have connected these dots sooner, but I was still operating on trust. 6 years of building enterprise systems had trained me to look for multiple data points before declaring a bug. I needed more evidence. Then there was the phone stuff. She'd be texting constantly with this little smile on her face, but the second I walked in the room, phone flipped over. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd say, just Amber, or work group chat. After I got Ed the sales job at my company, he started coming to office happy hours more. Megan would show up too, saying she wanted to support both of us. There was this one night at Barley's where I got stuck talking to a client who showed up unexpectedly. I was across the room for maybe 45 minutes. When I finally broke free, I found Megan and Ed in this deep conversation in a corner booth, heads almost touching. They jumped a little when I walked up. Ed immediately launched into this story about a potential lead at the hospital where Megan worked, how they were discussing an in with the procurement department. Made sense on the surface. What didn't make sense was how Ed's hand lingered on Megan's arm a beat too long, or how Megan's cheeks were flushed in that way I recognized from our early dating days. But again, my own brother, my own wife, I filed it away as an anomaly, not a pattern. Ed started showing up at our place unannounced too. He'd bring Megan these little gifts. Her favorite coffee from that specialty shop downtown, fancy chocolates or candles she liked. When I thanked him for being thoughtful, he'd say shit like, just looking out for my sister-in-law. I actually thought it was nice at the time. Freaking clueless. At work, Ed was actually doing well in sales. Hit 115% of his quota 3 months in a row. Started dressing better. Seemed more focused. I was secretly proud that my helping him had paid off. Co-workers would congratulate me on straightening Ed out, and I'd feel this misplaced sense of brotherly accomplishment. Then, about 2 months after, Megan started getting sick in the mornings. I'd hear her in the bathroom at 6 a.m., the shower running to mask the sounds. One morning I got up to check on her, held her hair back while she threw up. I suggested maybe she was pregnant, and she freaked out, like genuinely panicked. Said it was just a stomach bug going around the hospital. She immediately scheduled a doctor's appointment, but didn't want me to go with her. Said it was nothing to worry about. I'd been tracking her cycle on my calendar. We were supposedly trying for a baby, after all. She was 2 weeks late, which had never happened before. I didn't press her on it, though. Figured she'd tell me when she was ready. Maybe she wanted to be sure before sharing the news. My friend Kevin, who works in hospital administration, not at Megan's hospital, met me for drinks around this time. He asked how things were going, and I mentioned Megan's mysterious stomach bug. Morning sickness, bro, he said with a wink. I told him Megan denied it, and he got this weird look on his face. You two still trying? When I said yes, he just nodded and changed the subject. Later that night, he texted me. Hey man, not trying to cause trouble, but how's Ed doing at your company? I replied that he was doing fine, hitting his sales targets. Kevin never explained why he asked. Around this time, Mom started acting weird too. She'd call Megan directly instead of calling our home phone like usual. When I'd be around during these calls, Megan would say things like, yes, I got that recipe, or I'll check that sale. But the conversations seemed longer than they needed to be. Once I walked in while they were on speaker, and Mom quickly said, oh, Josh is home. We'll talk later. Mom had always liked Megan, but suddenly they had this new closeness. They'd go shopping together. Had inside jokes I wasn't part of. Mom even gave Megan a family heirloom necklace that had been promised to my future wife since I was a kid. When I mentioned being surprised by this, Mom said, well, she is your wife now, isn't she? Something in her tone felt off. Everything fell apart on a Thursday in April. I was working from home while Megan had a shift at the hospital. I'd made plans to surprise her with her favorite takeout for dinner when she got home, hoping to reconnect after weeks of feeling distance between us. Around lunchtime, I got an email notification that a furniture delivery I'd been waiting on was scheduled for tomorrow. I needed to confirm the time slot, but couldn't find the original confirmation in my inbox to reply to. We shared a desktop computer in our home office that we both used. Megan for her nursing continuing education, and me for personal projects. I was logged into my email account, but remembered Megan sometimes organized my emails when using the computer. She was big on inbox zero while I let emails pile up. I figured maybe Megan had seen it and moved it to a folder, so I logged into her email to see if she'd forwarded it there. That's when I saw an email thread between her and my mom with the subject line, "Don't let Josh find out." My stomach dropped. I sat there staring at that subject line for what felt like forever. There was this voice in my head saying, close the browser, respect her privacy, but a louder voice saying, WTF is this about? I started reading through the thread, hands shaking, and it was like getting punched in the face repeatedly. Emails going back 3 months between my mom and Megan, discussing how to hide Megan's affair with Ed. The earliest emails were vague. Mom asking Megan if she was sure about this path and warning her to be more careful around Josh. But they quickly became explicit. Mom was actually giving her advice on how to cover it up, when to claim hospital shifts, what excuses to use, even offering her house as a meeting place when Dad was out golfing. Frank always plays 18 holes on Thursdays, so you have at least 4 hours, one email read. Mom had created a detailed schedule of when Dad would be out of the house for Megan and Ed to use. My own mother, plotting behind my back. Then the bomb. The latest emails were about the pregnancy. Megan was 2 months pregnant, confirmed by her doctor, and they weren't sure if it was mine or Ed's. The timing overlapped with both of us. There was an email with Megan panicking after I suggested the morning sickness might be pregnancy. My own mother was telling my wife to pass it off as mine either way, saying, Josh would be a better father anyway, and what he doesn't know won't hurt him. The entire conversation read like a conspiracy novel. There were timestamp specific alibis, contingency plans, even a shared calendar where they tracked my work schedule and planned their meetups accordingly. The systematic nature of it all was what got me. This wasn't just an impulsive mistake. It was a calculated, ongoing deception involving the 3 people who were supposed to love me most. I felt physically sick. I sat at the computer for what must have been hours, reading these emails. Every single one was more devastating than the last. I kept hoping to find something, anything, that would tell me this was all a misunderstanding, a sick joke, something other than what it was. But no, it was painfully clear. I took screenshots of everything and saved them to a flash drive. Then I printed out the most incriminating ones and put them in a folder. I called Chester. I couldn't think straight, needed someone level-headed. You need a lawyer, he said. Now. Don't confront them yet. Chester knew a good attorney. His second divorce had been complicated. He made the call right there from my living room, put it on speaker. Sarah Jacobson, divorce attorney. Since we lived in a fault state, and I had clear evidence of infidelity, Sarah said I was in a strong position. The fact that I had bought the house before marriage meant it wouldn't be considered marital property. Same with most of my investments and savings. She advised me to secure my finances immediately, so Chester drove me to the bank. I moved most of our joint funds into a separate account, leaving enough in the joint account to avoid claims of financial abandonment. I left exactly $5,000 in our joint account, enough to show I wasn't trying to financially strand her, but not enough to fund a new life with my brother. The rest, about $38,000, went into an individual account under just my name. I also called my investment firm and verified that my premarital assets, about $115,000 in various funds, were properly documented as separate property. By the time Megan came home that night, I had already set things in motion. Sarah was drafting divorce papers. Chester had helped me regain some composure. I didn't confront Megan that night. I was still in shock, and I needed to think strategically. How was your shift? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. Exhausting, she said, detailing some fictional emergency room crisis. I watched her lie to my face, thinking about the emails where she described meeting Ed at my mother's house that very day. The hardest part was pretending everything was normal while my entire life was imploding. She asked why Chester's car had been in our driveway earlier. Apparently the neighbors had mentioned it. I said we'd been discussing a work project. Another lie to add to the pile. Over the next few days, I acted normal while setting everything in motion. I'd go to work, make small talk with Megan in the evenings, even watched our usual Thursday night show together, all while dying inside. I gathered all my important documents and moved them to a safety deposit box. I froze our joint credit cards. I even installed small cameras in our common areas, totally legal since it was my house. Chester helped me set them up while Megan was at work, just in case they try to take or destroy anything, he advised. Kevin from hospital administration texted to check in. Turns out he'd seen Megan and Ed together at a restaurant weeks ago, looking more intimate than in-laws should. He'd been trying to find a way to tell me. I thanked him for trying, told him I figured it out on my own. My plan started forming on Sunday night. Megan was in the shower when a text notification popped up on her iPad on the coffee table, from Ed, saying he couldn't wait to see her tomorrow at Mom's. The betrayal was happening literally every day right under my nose. That's when I decided on the dinner plan. I called my dad Monday morning and asked if he could have a family dinner at our place that weekend. Told him I had some good news to share. Are you sure you want to host? Your mom and I can do it, he offered. No, I insist. I want it at our place, I said, thinking about how perfect it would be to confront them all on my territory. I invited Ed and my parents and told Megan to prepare for a special dinner. She seemed nervous, but agreed. I could see the tension in her shoulders when I mentioned Ed was coming. She texted constantly that day, probably coordinating stories with him and Mom. In the days leading up to the dinner, I met with Sarah twice more. She had drafts of the divorce filing ready. Sarah called Thursday with an update. The divorce papers would be ready Friday morning. I picked them up during my lunch break, the manila envelope burning a hole in my backpack all afternoon. The day of the dinner, I took the afternoon off work to prepare everything. Food ordered from this nice Italian place downtown. No way I was cooking. Divorce papers in a manila envelope, and a folder of emails in a larger envelope for my dad. The camera in the dining room was recording, just in case things got out of hand, and I needed proof later. I had another surprise ready too. I'd cashed out some stock options and had a cashier's check for $10,000 made out to my dad, the exact amount I knew my parents had recently loaned Ed to pay off his credit cards. I figured Dad should get his money back before the family imploded. My parents arrived first at 6:30 p.m. Mom gave me this weird tight hug and immediately asked where Megan was. "She's upstairs getting ready," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Ed showed up last, at 6:45. He had this cocky smile that made me want to punch him on sight. He gave me one of those bro hugs, slapping my back like we were still close. I had to use every ounce of self-control not to react. Megan came downstairs in this blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. We all sat down for dinner. I stayed calm, making small talk about work, the weather, Dad's golf game. Mom kept glancing nervously between Megan and Ed. Megan barely touched her food, just pushed it around her plate. After the main course, Dad raised his glass. "So, what's this good news you wanted to share with us?" I smiled, reached under the table, and pulled out the manila envelope. "Actually, I do have something to share," I said, sliding the envelope across the table to Megan. "These are divorce papers." The room went dead silent. Megan's face went white. "What are you talking about?" she whispered, not opening the envelope. "I know everything, Megan. About you and Ed, about the baby that might be his, about Mom helping you hide it all." I kept my voice steady, even though I was raging inside. Mom gasped dramatically. "How dare you accuse them of such a thing? Megan would never—" I cut her off by pulling out the second envelope and handing it to my dad. "These are emails between Mom and Megan discussing the affair and how to hide it from me. Been going on for at least 3 months." Dad's hands shook as he started reading. The color drained from his face. Ed stood up suddenly, knocking over his chair. "You had no right to go through her emails!" he shouted, like that was the real crime here. "I think I had every right to know my wife is screwing my brother and might be pregnant with his kid," I said, still keeping my voice level. "How long were you planning to hide that, Megan? Were you just going to pass it off as mine?" Megan burst into tears. "It's not what you think," she sobbed. "I love you. It was a mistake. A 3-month mistake? With my brother? While my mother covered for you?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "And now you're pregnant." Mom tried to reach for the papers Dad was reading, but he held them away from her. "Catherine, what is this?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "Did you help them hide this from Josh?" My mother's face had gone from fake shock to panic. "Megan, you told me you were sure it was Josh's," she said, suddenly throwing Megan under the bus to save herself. Dad looked up from the emails, his face hard as stone. "Catherine, did you know about this? Did you help them hide this from our son?" His voice was quiet but deadly serious. Mom started crying, trying to play victim. "I was just trying to protect the family. Ed made a mistake, but breaking up the family wouldn't help anyone." Ed, the smug piece of shit, actually scoffed. "Come on, it's not that big a deal. Megan and I connected, it happens. Josh is always working anyway, barely pays attention to her." Something in me snapped. I stood up, walked around the table, and punched him square in the nose. There was a satisfying crack, and blood immediately started pouring down his face. He stumbled back, knocking over a side table. "Iddi!" Mom screamed, rushing to Ed. "Josh, what is wrong with you?" Dad stood up then, looking more angry than I'd ever seen him. "Enough, Catherine! Our son just found out his wife and brother betrayed him in the worst possible way, and you're worried about Ed's nose?" He pointed at Ed. "Get out of this house, now!" Ed held his bleeding nose, glaring at all of us. "This isn't over! You're going to regret this!" he spat, before storming out the front door. Mom tried to follow him, but Dad grabbed her arm. "You stay right here. We have a lot to discuss about your role in all this." Megan was still crying at the table. "Josh, please, we can work through this. I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake." I turned to her, feeling nothing but cold contempt. "I want a paternity test. If you're keeping this baby, I need to know if it's mine. And either way, we're done." I handed the cashier's check to my dad. This is to pay back what Ed borrowed recently. I figured you should get your money back before everything falls apart. Dad looked at the check, then back at me with sad eyes. Son, I had no idea any of this was happening. Mom was frantically trying to explain herself, saying she just wanted to protect Ed, that she knew it was wrong but thought it would just be a phase, that she didn't want to hurt me. Dad wasn't having any of it. He told her to get her coat. They were leaving. After my parents left, Megan and I sat in silence for what felt like hours. Finally, she spoke. What happens now? Now? Now you pack a bag and leave. The house is mine. It's not community property. You've got until tomorrow to figure out where you're going, but it won't be here. She nodded slowly, then went upstairs to pack. I sat at the dining table, surrounded by the wreckage of what I thought was my life, feeling strangely calm. The worst had happened, and I had survived it. Everything from here on out would be rebuilding. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyer meetings and paperwork. Megan moved out to stay with a friend. Not with Ed, interestingly enough. I had changed the locks the day after the dinner. The paternity test was scheduled once it was safe to perform one. Megan agreed without argument. I think part of her was hoping the baby was mine, thinking that might change things. Then, 2 weeks after the dinner, I got served with a misdemeanor assault charge, courtesy of Ed, who had the nerve to report the punch to the police. My lawyer, Sarah, wasn't overly concerned. First offense, no weapon, and a situation with emotional provocation. Not a legal defense per se, but potentially relevant for sentencing. She made it clear the court wouldn't ignore the assault, but context could work in my favor. 3 months later, we had our hearing. Ed showed up with his arm around Mom, playing the victim like a pro. I came with Sarah and 2 character witnesses from work, including Chester, who spoke to my history of professionalism and restraint. The judge reviewed the incident, heard testimony about the circumstances leading up to it, and accepted some contextual evidence regarding the affair. Not as justification, but as background. In the end, the court found me guilty of simple assault and imposed a $500 fine, noting that it was an isolated act in response to a deeply personal betrayal. The judge didn't mince words, saying I had let emotions override better judgment, but also implied that Ed was fortunate things hadn't escalated further. Mom looked mortified. Ed glared like he expected applause. I considered it $500 well spent. Dad called me the day the assault charges were filed. He was furious. Not at me, but at Ed. He told me he'd already taken steps to remove Ed from his will entirely. When Mom found out, she apparently had a complete meltdown, threatening to leave Dad if he went through with it. I told her she was welcome to leave, but she should know I'd make sure she got nothing if she chose Ed over our family, Dad told me. That shut her up pretty quick. My dad's finances are no joke. 30 years at his engineering firm. Smart investments, real estate holdings. No wonder Mom freaked out when Dad threatened to cut Ed out. Mom's true colors showed through this whole thing. She'd raised Ed to think he could do no wrong, and now she was facing the consequences of creating such an entitled jerk. Dad said she was still moping around the house, crying about how her family was falling apart. But at least she'd stopped defending Ed openly. Dad came by the house a week after the dinner. He brought his tools and helped me repaint the living room and master bedroom, erasing any hint of Megan's decorating choices. We didn't talk much while we worked, but when we finished, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You're handling this better than I would have at your age. I'm proud of you." That meant more than he knew. I went back to work after a week off. Chester had told the team I was dealing with family issues and needed space. When I returned, he'd moved my desk to a different floor from Ed's department. Smart move. I found out later that Chester had also put Ed on a performance improvement plan, citing ethical concerns in his file. Technically, sleeping with your brother's wife isn't a fireable offense, but Chester found ways to make Ed's work life difficult without crossing any HR lines. Megan's religious parents found out about everything from my dad, who felt they deserved to know what their daughter had done. They were devastated. Her dad called me personally to apologize, saying they had raised her better than this. They told Megan she wasn't welcome in their home until she found her way back to God. Pretty harsh, but I couldn't blame them for being disappointed. Ed and Megan eventually ended up renting an apartment together, though from what I heard, they were far from happy. Mom was their only visitor, sneaking over when she thought Dad wouldn't notice. I cut all 3 of them out of my life completely, changed my number, blocked their emails, the works. Dad was the only family member I still talked to. The paternity test results came back. The baby wasn't mine. In a way, it was a relief, a clean break with no biological ties to maintain. The divorce proceedings went smoothly after that, with the infidelity proven and the paternity test confirming it wasn't my child. Since we lived in a fault state, Megan got almost nothing. I kept the house, my retirement accounts, and most of our assets. She didn't even fight it. I think she knew she had no grounds to. Our friends mostly took my side, especially after they learned the full story. A few tried to stay neutral, saying there are two sides to every story, but they faded away pretty quickly. My real friends stepped up, invited me over for dinner, checked in regularly, didn't let me isolate myself. I threw myself into work, took on a new project rebuilding a major insurance company's claims processing system. The 70-hour weeks kept my mind off everything. Chester started grooming me for a technical director position, faster advancement than I'd expected, but I was ready for it. I also joined a gym, hired a trainer who kicked my ass 3 times a week, lost the 15 pounds I'd gained during my marriage, put on some muscle, started running again, did a half marathon 6 months after the divorce. Dating was the last thing on my mind for a long time. Friends tried to set me up, but I wasn't ready. Trust issues don't disappear overnight. 6 months after everything went down, I was in a good place. The divorce was finalized. The assault charges were settled with a small fine, and I'd been promoted at work. The house was finally feeling like mine again, after I renovated and got rid of everything that reminded me of Megan. I completely gutted the master bathroom. New tile, new fixtures, new everything. Converted the guest bedroom into a home gym. Built a custom entertainment center in the living room. The house became a project that kept my hands busy and my mind focused. By the time I was done, it looked nothing like the place where Megan and I had lived together. My finances were looking better than ever. The promotion came with a $20,000 salary bump plus stock options. I maxed out my 401k contributions, started a separate investment account, and even began looking at rental properties as potential income sources. At 28, I was in a better financial position than most guys my age, especially without a wife draining my resources. Then out of nowhere, I got a text from Mom asking to meet at a diner downtown. Said it was important and she needed to talk to me in person. I agreed to meet her during my lunch break, making it clear I only had 30 minutes. When I arrived at the diner, I immediately regretted coming. Mom wasn't alone. Megan was sitting next to her, looking exhausted, with a baby carrier on the booth seat. I almost walked out, but Mom spotted me and waved frantically. I went over and sat down across from them, not bothering with greetings. "What is this?" I asked, looking directly at Mom. She had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Your father doesn't know I'm here," she admitted, "but I needed to talk to you. Ed's been arrested." That got my attention. "Arrested for what?" "He was caught embezzling money from the company, and he also got a DUI last week," Mom said, her voice cracking. "He's facing serious jail time. I need your help to bail him out." I just stared at her in disbelief. "You want me to bail out the brother who slept with my wife, got her pregnant, and then pressed assault charges against me? Are you insane?" Looking closer, I could see Mom's designer handbag was scraped and worn, her manicure chipped. Dad must have cut off her spending. Good for him. Megan spoke up then, her voice small. "Ed left us. Right after Lily was born," she said, gesturing to the baby. "He said he wasn't ready to be a father. He was drinking a lot. Sometimes he'd get angry, push me around. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction that their relationship had imploded. Not pity for her situation. Just nothing. He hit her, Josh," Mom said, like that would somehow make me care. "And now she's alone with the baby. No job, no support." I looked at Megan. "And what do you want from me?" She started crying. "I don't know what to do. My parents won't talk to me. I can't work with a newborn. Ed drained our bank account before he got arrested. I thought, maybe you could help, just until I get back on my feet." I sat back and looked at these two women who had betrayed me, now asking me for help because the guy they chose over me had proven to be exactly the piece of shit I always knew he was. Mom nodded. "Family helps family, Josh." I almost laughed. "Where was that family loyalty when you were helping them hide their affair from me? When you convinced Megan to try to pass off this baby as mine?" "I made a mistake," Mom said, tears welling up. "I thought I was protecting everyone." "No, you were protecting your favorite," I said flatly. "And now you're still choosing him, even after everything he's done." Mom leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Your father's being unreasonable. He's frozen all our accounts. I can't access any money without his approval. He's talking about divorce if I don't cut ties with Ed completely." "Sounds reasonable to me," I said. "Dad's finally standing up for himself." I stood up, taking out my wallet. I dropped one card on the table, for a women's shelter. "This place can help you, Megan. I won't. As for Ed, he can rot in jail for all I care." I looked at Mom. "Don't contact me again. Tell Dad I miss him and he's welcome to call me anytime." I walked out without looking back. In my car, I sat for a moment, expecting to feel something. Anger, vindication, maybe even pity. But nope, They weren't my problem anymore. I'd rebuilt my life from the ashes they'd left, and I was doing just fine without them. That night, Dad called me. He'd figured out where Mom had gone and why. He apologized for her behavior and assured me he had no intention of helping Ed either. We talked for almost an hour about work, about the house, about the new woman I'd been seeing, normal father-son stuff. Then months later, I heard through mutual friends that Ed had taken a plea deal, 18 months for embezzlement. Megan had moved back to her hometown, apparently reconciled with her parents enough that they were helping with the baby. As for me, the promotion at work turned into a director position overseeing a team of 15 developers. I bought a rental property that's already generating positive cash flow. I'm planning a 2-week hiking trip through Yellowstone next summer, something I've always wanted to do but never made time for. Life isn't perfect, but I'm moving forward, and I know now that I'm stronger than I ever thought possible. Some days, that's enough. Story 3. This story is titled, Parents Didn't Notice That I Moved to Another State. They were busy with my golden child brother, and now, after they found out I am rich, they are calling to reconcile. Hey there. We put a lot of effort into finding the best stories for you. If you're enjoying them and want to help us out, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really supports our channel. Now let's start the video. OP starts by saying, Hey, Reddit. I've been lurking here for a while, reading other people's stories about their messed up families, and I finally decided to share mine. I don't know if anyone's going to read this, but honestly, just typing it out feels like a relief. Let me start from the beginning. My name's Ethan, and if I had to describe my family dynamic in one word, it'd be lopsided. Growing up, my parents, Mark and Linda, didn't just have favorites, they had a favorite. My younger brother Ryan was the golden child. He was their pride and joy, the one they doted on, praised, and supported in every possible way. And me? I was the invisible one, the kid who got just enough attention to keep me alive, but not enough to feel like I mattered. Ryan was one of those kids everyone loved to be around. He had that magnetic energy, always smiling, always talking, always charming people. From the moment he could walk, my parents acted like he was some kind of miracle. I, on the other hand, was quieter and more reserved. I liked books, drawing, and tinkering with little projects in my room. I wasn't the type of kid who lit up a room, and I guess that made me less interesting to them. The favoritism started small. When we were little, Ryan got more toys than I did. At first, I thought maybe it was because he was younger and my parents were trying to make him happy. But as we got older, it became clear that this wasn't about his age. It was about him being their star, and me being, well, the other kid. Birthdays were a perfect example. For Ryan's birthdays, my parents went all out. Big parties, expensive gifts, the whole 9 yards. For mine, it was usually just a cake and a happy birthday before they went back to talking about Ryan's latest achievements. One year, I remember asking for a new art set. Instead, they got me a pack of pens from the dollar store. Meanwhile, Ryan got a brand new bike for his birthday that same year. But it wasn't just material things. The emotional neglect hurt even more. When I got straight A's on my report card in middle school, I was so proud. I thought, maybe this will get their attention. I showed my mom, hoping for at least a good job, Ethan. Instead, she glanced at it and said, That's nice, before turning to gush over Ryan's latest basketball game. He wasn't even good at basketball, but somehow, his 2 points in a middle school game were more exciting than my academic achievements. That kind of thing happened all the time. If Ryan had an interest, my parents were all in. They bought him gear, signed him up for lessons, cheered him on at every game. But when I showed interest in something, it was like pulling teeth to get them to care. Once I told them I wanted to start a small online shop to sell handmade crafts. I'd been saving up for months and needed a little extra money to buy supplies. My dad laughed and said, You don't need to waste your time on that. Focus on something practical. Then, a few months later, Ryan announced he wanted to start a fitness gear brand. My parents immediately opened their wallets. They helped him buy equipment, paid for a professional website, and even hired a graphic designer to create his logo. I remember sitting there watching all this unfold and thinking, why does he get everything handed to him while I have to fight for scraps? By the time I hit high school, I had learned to stop expecting anything from them. Ryan was their world, and I was just the guy who lived in the same house. They were so focused on making sure Ryan succeeded that they didn't notice I was slowly pulling away. Ryan, of course, loved being the center of attention. He had this smug attitude, like he knew he was the favorite and enjoyed rubbing it in my face. If I got a new pair of shoes, he'd laugh and say, "Finally upgrading from those hand-me-downs?" If I tried to join a conversation at the dinner table, he'd interrupt and steer the topic back to himself. It wasn't just annoying, it was humiliating. I felt like I didn't belong in my own family. My parents encouraged Ryan's behavior by never calling him out. If I complained, they'd say I was being too sensitive or that Ryan was just joking. One incident stands out in my memory. It was during my senior year of high school, and I had entered a regional competition for small business ideas. I spent weeks preparing my pitch, designing prototypes, and perfecting my presentation. When I won first place, I came home bursting with excitement. I told my parents, thinking maybe, just maybe, they'd finally be proud of me. My dad's response? That's nice, but have you seen Ryan's new logo? It's so professional looking. My mom didn't even look up from her phone. I went to my room that night and cried, not because I wanted their approval anymore, but because I realized I'd never get it. That was the moment I decided I needed to get out. I couldn't keep living in a house where I was constantly overlooked and undervalued. I started making plans to leave as soon as I graduated. But of course, leaving wasn't going to be easy. My parents had sunk so much money into Ryan's business that there wasn't much left for me. When I told them I wanted to move out and focus on my own small business, they shut me down immediately. My dad said, "We can't spread ourselves too thin. Ryan's business is the future of this family." It was like a slap in the face. They didn't even consider my dreams or ambitions because they were too busy propping up Ryan. That's when I realized I couldn't rely on them. If I wanted a better life, I'd have to build it myself, without their help. So, that's exactly what I did. After the disaster of my high school years and my parents' blatant favoritism, I knew I couldn't stick around much longer. What little faith I had left in them vanished when they poured thousands into Ryan's half-baked business idea while outright dismissing mine. That was the final straw. I decided I wouldn't wait for anyone to hand me an opportunity. I'd make one for myself. But here's the thing. When you've been ignored and underestimated your whole life, you learn to keep your plans quiet. I wasn't about to announce to my parents that I was working on my own business, not when they were so dismissive of me. So I went underground. My first step was saving every penny I could. I worked part-time jobs after school, tutoring, babysitting, even some freelance work online. I'd lie to my parents and say I was volunteering at the library or studying at a friend's house. They didn't ask many questions, probably because they were too busy hovering over Ryan's every move. With the money I saved, I started teaching myself the basics of running a business. I'd stay up late watching tutorials on marketing, web design, and product sourcing. It wasn't glamorous. I worked out of my tiny bedroom, often hiding my laptop screen when someone walked in. It felt sneaky, but honestly, it was exhilarating. For the first time, I was working towards something that was mine. My idea was simple. I wanted to create custom-designed products, things like mugs, tote bags, and stationery, that appealed to niche audiences. It wasn't groundbreaking, but I believed in it. I researched trends, designed mock-ups, and even found a small supplier willing to work with me on a budget. The first time I made a sale, I thought I was going to cry. It wasn't a lot of money, just $15 for a custom mug, but it felt like I'd won the lottery. Someone out there valued something I created. Meanwhile, Ryan's business was flopping spectacularly. He'd come home from meetings with his team, a couple of his friends who spent more time drinking than working, and complain about how hard it was to get clients. My parents, instead of holding him accountable, just threw more money at the problem. They paid for new equipment, a marketing consultant, and even rented a small office space for him. I overheard my dad once say, "Don't worry, Ryan. These things take time. You're building something big here." It took everything in me not to laugh. Ryan barely lifted a finger, yet my parents treated him like he was the next Steve Jobs. While Ryan was squandering their resources, I was quietly scaling up my little operation. My online shop started gaining traction thanks to some clever social media marketing and word of mouth. I'd post on forums and groups where my target audience hung out, subtly plugging my products without coming across as pushy. Slowly but surely, orders started coming in. By the time I graduated high school, I was making enough to support myself. I didn't tell my parents, of course. They assumed I was still just figuring things out. When I told them I wanted to move out, they barely blinked. My dad said something like, "Good for you. Maybe you can help Ryan with his business now that you'll have more time." I had to bite my tongue to keep from snapping. Instead, I just smiled and said, "Sure, Dad." What they didn't know was that I wasn't moving out to help Ryan or to stay close to home. I'd already found a small office in another state, far enough that they wouldn't drop by unannounced. It wasn't anything fancy, just a single room with peeling wallpaper and a creaky chair. But it was mine. I signed the lease the day after graduation. For the first time in my life, I felt free. For the first time in my life, I felt free. Setting up my office was one of the happiest moments of my life. I spent days rearranging furniture, setting up my computer, and organizing inventory. It was hard work, and there were moments when I doubted myself, but I loved every second of it. One of the first things I did after moving out was expand my product line. I introduced personalized notebooks and planners, which turned out to be a huge hit. I also started offering custom designs for bulk orders. Think corporate gifts or wedding favors. The business grew faster than I expected. Within a year, I was making enough to hire a part-time assistant to help with packing and shipping. By the second year, I'd upgraded to a larger office and brought on 2 more team members. Meanwhile, my parents still thought I was working a side job and occasionally helping Ryan. They didn't ask for details, and I didn't offer any. It was almost funny how little they cared about what I was actually doing. Ryan, on the other hand, was struggling more than ever. His business had completely tanked. The office my parents rented for him was empty most days, and his website hadn't been updated in months. My dad still tried to prop him up, saying things like, "These are just growing pains." But even he was starting to sound tired. By the time I hit my 3rd year in business, I was making more money than I ever thought possible. I had multiple revenue streams, a loyal customer base, and even a few partnerships with local retailers. I didn't just feel successful, I felt vindicated. All those years of being overlooked and underestimated had led to this moment. My parents had put all their faith in Ryan, and he had let them down. Meanwhile, I had built something from nothing, all on my own. But the funny thing was, they still didn't notice. I'd come home for the occasional holiday dinner, and my dad would always ask, "So, Ethan, when are you going to get serious about your career?" I wanted to laugh in his face. Instead, I'd just say, "I'm working on it, Dad," and leave it at that. Little did they know I wasn't just working on it, I was thriving. I was sitting in my office one morning, scrolling through emails and planning out my next product launch when my phone buzzed. I don't usually answer calls from unknown numbers, but something about this one made me pick up. "Hey, Ethan, it's Dad." I froze for a moment. My dad doesn't call me often. Hell, he barely calls me at all unless there's some sort of favor he needs. I leaned back in my chair and said, "Hey, Dad, what's up?" There was an awkward pause before he started talking. "Your brother, well, Ryan's got another business idea, and we're all pitching in to help him get started again. He really wants to get it right this time." I felt my stomach twist. It wasn't anger exactly. It was more like disappointment, that familiar weight I'd been carrying since I was a kid. "Okay," I said cautiously, waiting for the inevitable ask. "Well," Dad continued, "we thought it would be great if you could come home for a family meeting, to brainstorm and help Ryan get this thing off the ground." And there it was, the real reason for the call. I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You want me to help Ryan with another business idea?" "Don't laugh, Ethan. He's learned a lot since the last one didn't pan out, and families should stick together during times like this." I leaned forward, resting my elbow on my desk. "Dad, with all due respect, why would I do that? You've never once asked me for help before." He sighed, and I could almost hear him massaging his temples through the phone. "Look, Ethan, it's not just about Ryan. It's about the family's reputation. People are starting to talk. They're wondering why Ryan can't seem to make anything work. If we all come together, we can help him turn things around and shut those people up." That's when it hit me. This wasn't about family. It wasn't about Ryan. It was about appearances. As always. My parents didn't want to help Ryan because they believed in him. They just didn't want to look bad in front of their friends and neighbors. "I'm sorry, Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've got my own business to run. I don't have time to play cheerleader for Ryan." That's when the guilt trip started. My dad launched into a monologue about how much they'd sacrificed for us, how hard it was to raise 2 boys, and how I should be grateful for everything they'd done. I stayed silent, letting him ramble. When he finally ran out of steam, I said, "I'm not coming home, Dad. I've got too much on my plate." The line went quiet for a moment, and then he said, "If you don't come, we'll stop supporting you financially." I almost laughed again. "Dad, I haven't needed your money in years. Stop pretending like you've been supporting me." There was a long pause. "What's that supposed to mean?" It was petty, but I couldn't resist. "It means I've been running my own business for the past few years. I'm doing fine without your help." I could hear the disbelief in his voice. "You're joking." "I'm not. I've got a thriving business, Dad. I'm making more than enough to take care of myself. So no, I won't be coming home to help Ryan." There was a long silence, and then he hung up without another word. I thought that was the end of it, but of course it wasn't. The next day, my mom called. "Ethan, sweetheart, we need to talk." Her voice was soft, almost pleading, but I knew better than to fall for it. "What do you need, Mom?" She sighed dramatically. "It's about Ryan. He's been so stressed lately, and your father and I are worried about him." We think it would mean a lot to him if you came home and supported him. He's your brother, after all. I gritted my teeth. Mom, I'm not coming home. I have my own life, my own business. Ryan's problems aren't my responsibility. But we're a family, she said, her voice breaking like she was on the verge of tears. You can't just turn your back on us. Mom, I didn't turn my back on you. You turned your back on me a long time ago. I'm not going to drop everything just because Ryan needs another bailout. She sniffled, but I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy. For years, I'd craved their approval, their attention, their support. Now that I didn't need any of those things, they suddenly wanted me to play the role of the perfect son. Ethan, she said, her voice steadier now. We just want what's best for everyone. Can't you see that? No, Mom, I said firmly. You want what's best for Ryan. You always have. I'm done being second place in this family. I hung up before she could respond. Over the next week, the calls kept coming. My dad left angry voicemails, accusing me of being selfish and ungrateful. My mom sent me long texts about the importance of family and how I was breaking her heart. I ignored them all. But then, something unexpected happened. One of my friends from high school reached out and said my dad had been asking around about me. Apparently, he'd gone to the local college I was supposed to be attending and tried to pull my records. When they told him I wasn't a student there, he completely lost it. I could only imagine the look on his face when he realized I'd been lying to him for years. A few days later, I got another call from my dad. This time, he was furious. What the hell have you been doing with all the money we sent you for tuition? I couldn't hold back my laughter. I used it to build my business, Dad. Thanks for the seed funding. You lied to us, he shouted. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? For who? I shot back. You? Ryan? Because I'm doing just fine. He tried to lecture me about trust and respect, but I cut him off. You want to talk about trust? Spect? Where was that when I needed it? When I was busting my ass to succeed and you couldn't even bother to notice? He hung up on me again. That's where things stand now. My parents are furious. Ryan's probably sulking, and I'm just sitting here, finally feeling free. I thought the chaos would die down after I dropped the truth bomb on my dad about my business and my independence. But I was wrong. If anything, it stirred up a bigger storm. A few days after the phone call, my mom showed up at my office. Yes, she showed up, unannounced and uninvited. It was late in the afternoon, and I was wrapping up a meeting with one of my team members when the receptionist poked her head into my office and said, Ethan, there's a woman here asking for you. She says she's your mom? I was stunned for a second. My mom had never taken any real interest in my life, so to have her standing outside my office was surreal. I told the receptionist to let her in, mostly because I didn't want her making a scene in the lobby. Mom walked in, looking around like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. This is nice, she said, her voice laced with surprise. Thanks, I said flatly, not bothering to mask my annoyance. What are you doing here, Mom? She sighed dramatically, like this was all some big inconvenience for her. I wanted to talk to you face to face. You've been avoiding my calls, and your father and I are worried about you. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. You're worried about me? Since when? Don't be like that, Ethan, she said, her tone shifting to one of forced sweetness. We're family. Families argue sometimes, but we need to stick together. I could feel my patience thinning. Is that why you're here? To guilt trip me into coming home and playing happy family? Her face fell for a moment, but she quickly recovered. No, I'm here because we want to make things right. Your father and I talked about it, and we realized we might have been too focused on Ryan over the years. We want to make up for it. I didn't believe her for a second. Make up for it? How exactly? By pretending the last 20-something years didn't happen? Her eyes darted around the room, avoiding my gaze. We want to support you now, Ethan. You've obviously done well for yourself, and we're proud of you. I scoffed. Proud? You didn't even know what I was doing until a week ago. You didn't care when I needed you, and now you suddenly want to act like supportive parents? Why? Because Ryan's business failed, and you need someone to bail you out? Her face flushed red. That's not fair. We've always cared about you. Stop, I interrupted, my voice sharp. Let's not rewrite history. You came here because you're desperate, not because you care. So why don't you drop the act and tell me what you really want? She hesitated, her hands fidgeting with the strap of her purse. Finally, she said, Your father and I are in a bit of a financial bind. Ryan's last venture cost us more than we expected, and, well, we were hoping you could lend us some money to get back on our feet. I laughed bitterly. Of course. It always comes back to money. It's not just about money, she said quickly. We want to rebuild our relationship with you too. This could be a fresh start for all of us. I stared at her, trying to decide if she actually believed what she was saying or if she was just trying to manipulate me. You spent years ignoring me, dismissing me, and now you want a fresh start because you're broke? That's not how this works, Mom. I'm not your safety net. Her expression hardened. Ethan, we're your parents. We've done so much for you over the years. No, you did so much for Ryan, I snapped. Don't sit here and pretend you were some kind of supportive parents when you couldn't even bother to ask how I was doing most of the time. I don't owe you anything. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You're being selfish. We're still your family, whether you like it or not. And you were my family. But you treated me like I didn't exist, I shot back. Now, if you don't mind, I have work to do. She left without another word, slamming the door behind her. I thought that was the end of it. But of course my parents weren't done. A few days later, I got another surprise visitor. Ryan. He showed up at my office looking like a mess, unshaven, disheveled, and desperate. I almost didn't recognize him. Ethan, he said as he walked in. Can we talk? I sighed, leaning against my desk. What do you want, Ryan? He sat down heavily, running a hand through his hair. Look, man, I know things haven't been great between us, but I really need your help right now. I raised an eyebrow. You need my help? That's a first. He flinched but pressed on. I screwed up, okay? I thought I could handle everything, but I couldn't. And now Mom and Dad are blaming me for all their problems. They're saying it's my fault the business failed, my fault they're broke. Isn't it? I asked bluntly. He looked at me, hurt, flashing in his eyes. I didn't mean for things to turn out this way. I thought I could make them proud, you know? But now, they're turning on me, and I don't know what to do. I folded my arms, staring at him. So you came to me because what? You think I can fix everything? I don't know, he admitted, his voice breaking. I need someone to have my back. Please, Ethan. I shook my head. You've got some nerve coming to me after everything. You bullied me, Ryan. You treated me like crap while Mom and Dad cheered you on. And now you want me to save you? I'm sorry, he said quietly. I was an idiot back then. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you. Too little, too late, I said firmly. I've moved on, Ryan. I built a life for myself without any of you. I'm not going to let you drag me back into the mess you created. He sat there for a moment, his shoulders slumped before standing up. I guess I deserve that, he said. But for what it's worth, I really am sorry. I didn't say anything as he walked out the door. Since then, I haven't heard from any of them. My phone's been blissfully silent, and I've been focusing on my business and my life. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm in control. I thought I'd seen it all after my parents and Ryan tried to guilt-trip me into helping them. I thought I could finally put all their drama behind me and move forward with my life. But life, as it turns out, has a funny way of throwing one last curveball when you least expect it. About a month after Ryan's desperate visit, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, not a text, an actual letter. I can't remember the last time anyone had written to me, so I was intrigued enough to open it. The handwriting was familiar. My mom's. The letter was long, rambling, and honestly hard to read in some places because of the smudges where tears had clearly hit the page. She started with the usual, how she and my dad missed me, how they regretted everything that had happened, and how much they loved me. But then it took a turn. Apparently, things at home had gotten even worse. The house they'd lived in for decades was gone. My parents had over-leveraged everything they had to fund Ryan's businesses, and when the last one failed, they couldn't keep up with the mortgage payments. They'd been evicted a few weeks ago and were now living in a tiny apartment on the outskirts of town. Ryan, the golden child, had cut and run. He'd taken what little money he had left and moved in with a friend 2 states over. He wasn't answering their calls, and my parents were furious. My mom wrote that she couldn't believe Ryan would abandon them after everything they'd done for him. It was ironic, really. They had spent their entire lives bending over backward for Ryan, showering him with love, support, and resources, only for him to leave them high and dry when things got tough. Meanwhile, the son they'd ignored, the one they dismissed as too sensitive or not ambitious enough, was the only one still standing. The letter ended with a plea. My mom begged me to come back, to forgive them, and to help them rebuild their lives. She said they didn't have anyone else to turn to, that they'd learned their lesson, and wanted to make things right. I put the letter down and sat in silence for a long time. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to be the bigger person, to go back and try to fix what was left of our family. After all, they were still my parents. And despite everything they'd done, or hadn't done, I couldn't completely shut off the part of me that craved their love and acceptance. But then I thought about all the years I spent waiting for them to care about me. All the birthdays and holidays where I was an afterthought. All the times they made it clear that Ryan was their priority, and I was just the background character in their perfect little family narrative. I couldn't go back. A few weeks after I got the letter, I heard from my aunt, the only extended family member I still kept in touch with. She called me out of the blue, her voice low and hesitant. "Ethan, I don't know if you've heard, but your parents are in real trouble." "I figured," I said, not bothering to hide my lack of sympathy. "They lost the house," she continued. "But it's worse than that. Mark, your dad, he had a big argument with one of his old clients, and it's blown up into a lawsuit. They're being sued for damages, and if they lose, they'll have nothing left." I rubbed my temples. "What do you want me to do about it?" She hesitated. "I'm not saying you owe them anything, Ethan. God knows they've treated you terribly. But they're your parents. I just thought you should know." I thanked her for letting me know and hung up. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about everything. My parents had made so many bad decisions, so many mistakes, but at the end of the day, they were still human. Flawed, selfish, and short-sighted. Sure, but human nonetheless. I wasn't going to swoop in and save them. I wasn't going to pour my hard-earned money into their endless pit of bad choices. But I decided I could give them one thing: closure. I called my mom the next day. She picked up on the first ring, her voice shaky and emotional. "Ethan, is that you?" "It's me," I said. "Oh, thank God," she whispered. "I've been praying you'd call. How are you? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "I just wanted to talk." She started crying, real guttural sobs that made me feel uncomfortable. After a few moments, she composed herself enough to speak. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. For everything. For how we treated you. You didn't deserve that. None of it." "I know I didn't," I said. "And I appreciate the apology, but it doesn't change what happened." She sniffled. "I know, I don't know how to fix this." "You can't fix it," I said bluntly. "It's too late for that. But you can learn from it. Maybe someday we can have a relationship, but it's going to take time, and it's going to take real effort from you and Dad." "We're willing to do whatever it takes," she said quickly. "We'll prove it to you, Ethan. I promise." I didn't respond right away. I knew better than to put too much stock in her promises. "Take care of yourselves," I said finally. "That's all I can say right now." We hung up, and I felt an odd sense of peace. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control of my relationship with my family. Final update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. I know I said I was done with my parents and their drama, but life has a way of complicating things. I've been sitting with everything for the past few months, and I realized something. No matter how much they've hurt me, they're still my parents. That doesn't mean I'm forgiving everything overnight, or pretending it didn't happen. It just means that I couldn't shake the thought of them struggling, homeless, and hopeless. As much as I wanted to stay detached, the idea of walking away entirely started to feel wrong. So, after a lot of internal debate, I decided to step in, not to fix their lives, but to give them a fighting chance to fix it themselves. I made one thing clear to myself. This wasn't about being the hero or proving a point. This was about setting boundaries and doing what I felt was right. A few days ago, I drove to the tiny apartment my parents had moved into after losing the house. I hadn't told them I was coming, and I wasn't sure what to expect. When I knocked on the door, my mom answered. She looked older than I remembered, more worn down. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Ethan," she whispered. "You came." "Yeah," I said, stepping inside. The apartment was small, cluttered, and depressing. My dad was sitting on the couch, flipping through a stack of papers. He looked up when he heard my voice. "Ethan," he said gruffly, standing up. "What are you doing here?" I looked between the two of them and took a deep breath. "I'm here because I've been thinking about everything, and I've decided I want to help. Not because I owe you anything, but because I want to." My dad's face twisted in confusion, while my mom's eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, you don't have to do this," she said. "We don't deserve it." "You're right," I said bluntly. "You don't, but that's not the point. I'm not here to rehash the past. I'm here to give you a chance to get back on your feet. That's it. No strings attached, no guilt trips. Just a chance." My dad sat back down heavily, running a hand through his hair. "How?" he asked after a long silence. "I'll help cover your immediate debts, rent, basic bills, stuff like that, but only temporarily," I explained. "And I'll help you figure out a plan to get back on track. But that's it. The rest is on you." They both nodded, stunned into silence. Over the next few days, I sat down with them and went through their finances. It was worse than I thought. They were drowning in credit card debt, overdue bills, and the fallout from my dad's lawsuit. Ryan's failed businesses had left them with nothing but broken promises and unpaid loans. I helped them set up a budget, arranged for some of their smaller debts to be consolidated, and even paid a couple of urgent bills to keep the lights on. It wasn't easy seeing how far they'd fallen, but I kept reminding myself that this was a temporary arrangement. There were a few tense moments, of course. My dad had a hard time swallowing his pride, and my mom kept trying to apologize for everything. I told her that apologies were fine, but what I really needed was for them to take responsibility for their lives moving forward. "This is the last time I'm doing this," I said firmly. "After this, you're on your own." They both nodded, and for once, I believed they understood. The hardest part was facing my own emotions. Every time I handed them money, or sat down to help them figure out a problem, a part of me wondered if I was being stupid, if I was setting myself up to be taken advantage of again. But another part of me felt like I was finally closing the chapter on years of pain and resentment. Helping them wasn't about fixing the past, it was about proving to myself that I could rise above it. It's been a week since I stepped in, and so far things seem to be moving in the right direction. My parents have started looking for part-time jobs, and they're taking the budgeting seriously. I even set up an online bill pay system for them to make things easier. I'm not saying everything's perfect now. There's still a lot of history between us, and it's going to take a long time to rebuild trust. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like we're moving forward instead of just spinning in circles. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm also keeping my boundaries firmly in place. If they slip back into old habits, I'll walk away again. No hesitation. But for now, I'm willing to give them this one last chance. Thanks for sticking with me, Reddit. I'll let you know how it goes. Fingers crossed. Story 4. Told my fiancé she's getting too close with her male best friend. She said, "You're insecure, and he's been in my life before you. If you make me choose, I'll always pick him." So I did, canceled the wedding, and kicked them both. 4 months later, she came back pregnant and sobbing. "All right, Reddit. Susan and I were getting married." Then she dropped, "Hey, Chad's in town and needs a place to crash." I'm not the jealous type, didn't mind at first, until they started acting way too close for just friends, if you catch my drift. I called it out. She didn't like that, so I kicked them out and canceled the wedding. Here's how it all unraveled. Update at the bottom, but seriously, read the whole thing. It gets wild. I, 31 male, run a custom motorcycle shop in Austin that's been killing it since I opened 3 years ago. 6 figures annually, featured in Bike Week mags, the whole deal. Got laid off from my engineering job, used the severance to lease an old garage and turn it into something real. First year was hell. Now, celebrities fly in for custom builds. The shop's got this industrial vibe that chicks either love or hate. Exposed brick, vintage signs, classic rock playing, and the constant smell of motor oil and metal. I've got 2 full-time mechanics, both guys who know their stuff and don't create drama. Andrew's this old-school Harley guru, and Allie's a younger dude who's a wizard with sport bikes. 2.5 years ago, I'm at this charity auction for wounded veterans when this smoke show walked up to my table. Meet Susan, 27 female, works as a PR manager for some tech company downtown. Blonde, fit, drives a BMW her daddy bought her, went to UT on daddy's dime. You know the type. The auction was at some fancy hotel ballroom, black tie affair where everyone's trying to outbid each other on golf packages and fine dining experiences. I'd bought a table because my business was doing well, and I figured it was good for networking. Plus, supporting veterans felt right. My dad's military, and I respect guys who served. Susan shows up in this little black dress scanning the room. When she spotted me in my tailored suit, yeah, I clean up nice when I have to, she made her move. Now I'm not gonna lie. She was out of my league looks-wise, but I had something she wanted. Plus, my shop was getting buzz, and she loved being seen with the cool motorcycle guy at her corporate events. My best friend was there that night, watching me work my magic. Daniel's this dude who can roast paint off a car, but somehow makes everyone love him for it. 32, works in construction management, built like a brick house but funnier than most stand-up comedians. He's got this sixth sense about people that's scary accurate. Bro, that chick's about as real as WWE wrestling. I should have listened to him right then. But Susan was hot, seemed interested in what I did for work instead of being embarrassed by it, and didn't mind getting her hands dirty when she came by the shop. At least not at first. The early dating phase was actually pretty solid. She'd swing by after work sometimes, bring dinner from whatever trendy spot downtown, and watch me work on bikes. Asked good questions, seemed genuinely interested in the craftsmanship aspect. Even got her hands dirty helping me polish chrome on this vintage shovelhead I was restoring. My dad's reaction when I first brought her around was classic. Pops is 65, retired Air Force mechanic, and has zero filter. Dude will tell you exactly what he thinks whether you want to hear it or not. But he's usually right, which makes it worse. She's pretty, son, but watch yourself. Girls like that have expensive taste and high expectations. Make sure she's with you for the right reasons. Fast forward through the whole dating dance, and 10 months ago, I popped the question. Dropped 8 grand on a ring she kept hinting at. Wedding was set for 1 month from now. The ring shopping was an education in itself. Spent 3 weekends hitting every jewelry store in Austin, while Susan explained cut, clarity, and color like she was teaching a masterclass. She had screenshots of her friends' rings on her phone for comparison, which should have been a red flag right there. But I was making good money, and figured if I was going to do it, might as well do it right. My dad's reaction when I told him about the ring price was priceless. 8 grand? Son, I bought your mother's engagement ring for 300 bucks in 1987, and she's still wearing it 35 years later. Your mother cried when I gave it to her, not because of the size, but because of what it meant. Here's the thing though, in 2.5 years of dating, this girl never once mentioned having a best friend named Chad. Yes, that's actually his name, from college. Not once. And trust me, Susan talks about everyone and everything. I know her yoga instructor's divorce details, her co-worker's dating life, even her hairdresser's family drama. She's got opinions about people I've never met and probably never will, but somehow Chad never came up. For someone who documented every friendship and connection, this was suspicious as hell. Until 2 months ago, when she dropped this casual announcement about her friend Chad from college moving to Austin for work. 2.5 years, and this is news to me? Something's not adding up. Chad rolls into town, and immediately I can tell dude's type. 29 years old, 6 feet 2 inches, looks like he stepped off a magazine cover. Works for McKinsey, drives a brand new Porsche Cayenne, probably spends more on his skincare routine and manicured nails than most guys spend on their entire wardrobe. McKinsey's one of those consulting firms that charges companies millions to tell them stuff their own employees already know. Chad's got that typical consultant swagger. Talks in buzzwords, name drops clients, acts like he's personally responsible for Fortune 500 success stories. But it's not just his looks that set off alarm bells, though. It's how Susan acts around him. I've seen her excited before, but this was different. The way she hugged him at the airport, jumping up and down like a teenager meeting her favorite celebrity. The way she introduced us was even worse, like she was introducing her tax accountant while Chad gave me this weak, soft handshake and immediately started talking to Susan like I'm invisible. Then he's pulling out his phone showing her pictures, some inside joke about spring break in Cancun, completely ignoring the fact that I'm standing right there. The spring break photos were particularly annoying. Chad scrolling through shots of him and Susan on some beach, both looking like they stepped out of a resort commercial. She's in a bikini that leaves nothing to imagination. He's shirtless showing off his gym membership, and they're posed like a couple in every single shot. Remember when we went parasailing? Chad asked, showing her a photo of them harnessed together. Oh my God, yes. That was amazing. Susan practically squealed, leaning into him to get a better look. I'm standing there wondering why my fiance never mentioned going parasailing with some dude, let alone having photos of it. Daniel was with me. He'd driven me to the airport because my truck was in the shop getting new tires. And he's giving me that look like, bro, you seeing this? Daniel's facial expressions are better than cable TV. The man can communicate an entire roast session with just his eyebrows. I tried to be cool about it. Maybe they're just catching up, right? But 45 minutes of being a third wheel while my fiance giggles at some other dude's stories was my limit. When I tried making conversation about Chad's work, he starts bragging about his mid-six-figures salary and staying at the Four Seasons on the company's dime. McKinsey really takes care of us, Chad said, adjusting his Rolex. First-class flights, 5-star hotels, unlimited expense accounts. It's pretty sweet. Before I can respond with anything about my business success, Susan jumps in offering our guest room. Our place. My house that I bought and pay the mortgage on. The house I'd been busting my ass to pay off early so we could start our marriage debt-free. When I tried to object, pointing out that the Four Seasons seemed more his speed anyway, she immediately shut me down. Babe, it's okay. Come on, he's an old friend. Old friend that somehow never existed until 2 months ago. On the drive home, Daniel was already warming up his material. Homeboy's got the loyalty of a rental car. Plus, he was checking out that bartender while your girl was talking to him. I hadn't noticed the bartender thing, but Daniel notices everything. So Chad moves into my guest room temporarily. Dude's made himself completely at home, using my gym equipment, eating my food, even had the balls to rearrange my living room furniture because it wasn't conducive to conversation. My home gym is in the converted garage space, Olympic weights, squat rack, heavy bag, the works. Took me 2 years to put together piece by piece. Chad starts using it like he lives there, never cleaning up, leaving his protein shaker bottles in the sink, adjusting all my equipment settings. But the furniture thing pushed me over the edge. Came home one day to find my living room completely rearranged. My leather sectional moved to face the kitchen instead of the TV. My coffee table replaced with some modern art piece Susan bought. Took down my vintage Harley posters, because abstract paint blobs are obviously better, right? What the hell is going on, Susan? Who gave your friend the permission to move things here? OMG, lower your voice, Blake, Susan hissed. He's used to a more sophisticated aesthetic. Sophisticated aesthetic. In my house. Then he should get his own place. She didn't like that. Started defending him immediately. I was watching Susan transform. Suddenly, nothing I did was good enough. My house needed to be more sophisticated for Chad. My drink selection was embarrassing. I needed to dress better because Chad was used to a certain standard. She wanted me to become some preppy country club version of myself to impress this freeloading pretty boy. Susan started shopping for my clothes too. Showed up with bags from Nordstrom full of button-down shirts and khakis that looked like Chad's uniform. I pointed out that I already had clothes and my own style. She said I needed to elevate my look for our social circle. Our social circle. Since when did we have a social circle that required elevation? They had constant inside jokes. College stories, spring break trips, people I'd never heard of. I'm sitting in my own living room feeling like an outsider, while they reminisce about their glory days. When I'd try to join the conversation, Susan would shut me down saying I wouldn't get it, because college was different back then. Yeah, sorry I didn't go to fancy UT and spend daddy's money on spring break trips. I was trying to build something real instead of partying away my 20s. Their college stories always involved parties, expensive trips, and situations that sounded more like dating than friendship. Formal dances where Chad was Susan's date because she couldn't find anyone else. Daniel came by one evening and witnessed the whole performance. After Chad and Susan went out for their nightly catch-up walk, he let me have it. Bro, I've seen some pathetic stuff in my time, but watching you get pushed around in your own living room takes the cake. What the heck is going on here? Tell him to get the hell out. Every evening after dinner, Chad and Susan would go for these long walks around the neighborhood. Just the two of them, talking about whatever they talked about, while I cleaned up dinner or worked on bikes in the garage. But it got worse when my dad stopped by the next weekend for our usual Sunday visit and got his first look at the Chad show. My dad and I have this tradition. Every other Sunday, he comes over and we grill steaks and work on whatever project I've got going. These Sundays are sacred to me. Pops walked into my living room, saw Chad sprawled on my couch in his fancy athleisure, eating my food and watching Susan fuss over him like he's visiting royalty, and just stared. The silence stretched for about 30 seconds before he spoke. Who's the Ken doll? Chad tried to introduce himself with that fake consulting charm, talking about his exciting work and how grateful he was for our hospitality. My dad just nodded politely and walked away. That's when you know Pops doesn't like someone. He gets polite. We stepped onto the back deck and Pops didn't waste time. That boy's not looking for an apartment. He's already found one. Yours. And your girl's acting like she's already moved in with him. He cut through the nonsense. I've been married for 35 years. I know what just friends looks like, and that ain't it. That boy's got designs on your woman, and she's letting him have them. Things got seriously messed up when Chad started taking over our wedding planning. This dude had opinions about everything. The music, the flowers, the food, even the groomsmen gifts. And Susan was eating it up, constantly referencing Chad's amazing taste and how he understood what she liked better than anyone. Better than your fiancé who you're marrying in a month? The music situation was particularly annoying. Susan and I had already picked out songs, mixture of classic rock, some country, stuff that represented both of us. But Chad thought our playlist was too basic, not sophisticated enough for the venue. He spent hours making a new playlist full of jazz and indie songs that nobody would dance to. Trust me, this will create the perfect ambiance, Chad explained, scrolling through his Spotify premium account on my laptop. Your guests will appreciate the elevated musical selection. But the breaking point came during our cake tasting. Chad had to come because he understood Susan's refined palate. Susan had never mentioned having a refined palate in 2.5 years of dating. She ate pizza, burgers, tacos, normal food. But suddenly she's got this sophisticated palate that requires expert consultation from Chad. When we finally picked a cake, Chad's choice naturally, Susan turns to him with this look of pure adoration. You always know exactly what I want. She asked Chad for approval on our wedding cake. The dude who'd been in town for weeks somehow understood what my fiancé wanted better than I did after 2.5 years. When I questioned why his opinion mattered more than mine, Susan called me insecure. Insecure. For wanting my fiancé to value my opinion. Chad just has really good taste, she explained. He knows what works for events like this. Our wedding was now just an event that required Chad's expertise to execute properly. When I told Daniel about the cake incident, he nearly spit out his drink. Barbie asked Captain Consultation for approval on your wedding cake? Bro, she's not marrying you. She's holding you hostage while she figures out if Chad's gonna make it official. Now this is where the whole thing cracked open. Last week I'm working late in my garage, rebuilding an engine for this custom Harley project, when I heard them talking on the back patio. They thought I couldn't hear over the music, but I've got good ears from years of listening to engine problems. The bike was a 1977 Shovelhead that some guy wanted completely restored to original specs. Beautiful machine, but the engine was shot. I'd been working on it for weeks, staying late to get the timing perfect. It was meditative work, taking apart something complex and rebuilding it better than before. I had classic rock playing while I worked, volume low enough to concentrate but loud enough to enjoy. I had the garage door open. Lucky thing, because that's when I heard them. Susan, are you really sure about this whole marriage thing? The question stopped me cold. I shut off my impact wrench and listened. Blake is a good guy, Susan said, but her voice sounded weird, uncertain, like she was trying to convince herself. Good guys finish last, Susan. You deserve someone who matches your intellect, your ambition, your class. Your class. There it was. Chad had been dancing around for 6 weeks. I wasn't in Susan's class. Not smart enough, not ambitious enough, not good enough for her social circle. It's complicated, she said, and I could hear the doubt in her voice. It doesn't have to be. You know there's always been something between us. Always been something between us. 6 years of friendship, and this preppy manipulator had never stopped wanting her. He'd been playing the long game the whole time, positioning himself as the superior choice while undermining my relationship with Susan. Think about what we could have. What we've always been building toward. Building toward. For 6 years while she was dating other people, while I was falling in love with her, Chad had been waiting and building toward this moment. I shut off the music and went inside. But sleep wasn't happening. The next morning, I called Daniel first thing. Finally! I was wondering when Captain Cuckold was going to show his true colors. What did you hear? I told him everything. The whole conversation, word for word. Bro, that dude just told you exactly what he's been planning this whole time. Question is, what are you going to do about it? What was I going to do about it? Well, that's when things starts getting interesting. That afternoon, I decided to force the situation. I told Susan it was time Chad found his own place, that we needed space to focus on us with the wedding 3 weeks away. Chad needs to find his own place, I said when Susan got home from work. Wedding's in 3 weeks and we need to focus on us. The reaction was immediate and nuclear. She called me selfish for wanting Chad out when he was trying to establish himself in a new city. When I pointed out he had a 6-figure job and could afford his own place, she threatened to postpone the wedding if I was going to be jealous and controlling. He's my oldest friend, Blake. How can you be so heartless? There it was. Postpone our wedding because I want her friend out of my house. You'd postpone our wedding for Chad? I'd postpone our wedding because you're acting paranoid and controlling. Paranoid. For not wanting another man living in my house. For wanting my fiancé to prioritize our relationship. So I asked her straight up, if she had to choose between me and Chad right now, today, what would she say? She stared at me for way too long. The silence stretched until it became its own answer. I could see her brain working, trying to figure out the right answer that would let her keep both of us. That's a ridiculous question. It's a simple question. If you had to choose right now, who would you pick? I shouldn't have to choose between my fiancé and my friend. But if you did? Another pause that lasted forever. I watched her face, saw the moment she realized there was no good answer, no way to avoid the truth. Then, Chad's been in my life longer. 6 years versus 2.5 years. Chad wins. The answer hit me like a punch to the gut, but it also clarified everything. She'd made her choice. She'd been making it for 6 weeks, probably longer. I was just the last one to know. I called Daniel immediately after she stormed out. She chose him, bro. Of course she did. Princess wants her prince, not the mechanic. I spent that day making calls. Called my lawyer first. Wanted to know where I stood legally. In Texas, engagement rings are conditional gifts. If the wedding's called off, I get the ring back regardless of who ends it. Good to know. Called the venue, the caterer, the band, the photographer. Canceled everything. Lost some deposits but saved myself from a much bigger mistake. The venue manager was understanding, Apparently, wedding cancellations happen more often than you'd think. Better to lose a deposit than pay for a whole wedding to the wrong person. The caterer was less understanding. $5,000 down the drain, but they'd already ordered specialty items. The photographer was cool about it, offered to do a photo shoot with my bikes instead, which actually sounded pretty awesome. Then I called my boys. Daniel, my brother Liam, Andrew from the shop, and my cousin Rick, who works in private security. Told them to come over that evening. I was going to need witnesses for what came next. Liam drove down from Dallas. He's 2 years older and has zero patience for drama. Andrew closed the shop early and brought sodas. Rick showed up in his off-duty security gear, looking like he was ready for trouble. Daniel showed up first, carrying a cooler of energy drinks and wearing his biggest grin. This is gonna be better than pay-per-view. You finally gonna grow a pair and kick these freeloaders out? When Susan and Chad got back from dinner, another meal I wasn't invited to, another decision made without consulting me, I was waiting in the living room with my crew and some paperwork. The look on their faces when they walked in was priceless. Chad went pale, Susan went red. Blake, we need to talk about this morning, Susan started. But I cut her off. Actually, we don't. Chad, you've got until tomorrow morning to get your stuff out of my house. Excuse me? Susan's voice hit that high pitch that means trouble. And Susan, here's your 30-day notice. You're moving out too. She looked at the eviction papers like they were written in a foreign language, then at me, then at my four buddies sitting there like a tribunal. When she saw I was serious, her face went nuclear. The whole scene played out exactly as expected. Her claiming I couldn't just take back an engagement ring, me explaining Texas law about conditional gifts, Chad trying to play peacemaker until Rick offered to help him find his room. Rick's got this way of standing that makes people nervous. 6'4", 250 pounds of muscle, and 20 years of dealing with actual problems. Chad took one look at him and decided cooperation was the better part of valor. Susan tried to argue that people can have friends of the opposite sex, that I was being unreasonable and controlling, but the evidence was overwhelming. She'd choose Chad over me, postpone our wedding for him, and taken his advice on everything from flowers to furniture. Ring, Susan. Hand it over. She threw the ring at me. I caught it midair. All that time tuning carburetors paid off. Fine. Take your stupid ring, but don't come crawling back when you realize what you've lost. I know exactly what I'm dodging. Daniel couldn't resist. Give it a week. Money says they're posting couple photos by Friday. Next morning, Chad's gone. Packed up his designer luggage and his skincare products and slithered back to his fancy hotel. Susan spent the day crying and throwing things into boxes, while my boys made sure she didn't accidentally damage anything on her way out. Andrew and Allie helped her load her stuff into a U-Haul. By noon, my phone was exploding. Her parents, her sister, her bridesmaids, even some of her co-workers. Everyone had something to say about what a terrible person I was for humiliating Susan like this. Her mom called first, screaming about how I'd embarrassed their family and destroyed her daughter's happiness. When I tried to explain that Susan had chosen Chad over me, she hung up. Her dad called an hour later, more reasonable but still angry. Sir, I didn't humiliate anyone. I just decided not to marry someone who doesn't want to marry me. My dad was sitting next to me during most of these calls, shaking his head and occasionally making comments like, "That woman's got some nerve, and these people are delusional." When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Your girl showed you exactly who she was. Good thing you were paying attention. Her bridesmaids were sending group texts calling me controlling and manipulative, unable to handle Susan having male friends. According to them, I was the problem for not trusting Susan's friendship with Chad. Male friends. Friends don't live in your house, rearrange your furniture, and tell you that you deserve better than your fiancé. Meanwhile, Susan's posting on Instagram about toxic masculinity and insecure men who can't handle strong women, really painting herself as the victim. Her story was that I'd thrown her out for having a friend, that I was insecure and controlling. The comments were split between her sorority sisters supporting her version and people who knew the real story calling her out. A few mutual friends reached out privately asking what really happened. Daniel was having a field day with her social media posts. Look at this one. Sometimes you have to cut toxic people out of your life. Yeah, good thing you cut yourself out of his life, sweetheart. Within 5 days of moving out, guess where Susan ended up? Chad's new downtown loft. What are the odds? Chad had apparently found a furnished apartment in one of those luxury high-rises downtown, and Susan moved right in as his temporary roommate while she figured out her next steps. Their social media told the whole story in real time. Suddenly, they're posting photos together constantly with captions about getting through tough times with real friends and being grateful for people who truly support them. The photos got progressively more couple-ish while they maintained the fiction of just being friends. First, it was innocent stuff, but the body language in every photo told a different story. Daniel kept sending me screenshots because he thought I'd be mad. But honestly, I was relieved. Watching their little performance just confirmed I'd made the right call. Look at this caption. So grateful for friends who really understand me. Yeah, friends who understand you need to get naked together. My dad's take was simpler. Son, actions don't lie. Those two are together now. Probably were together before. And you're better off without either of them. 3 weeks later, what would have been my wedding day, I'm at the gym when I meet Yulia. She's a physical therapist, owns her own practice, and doesn't cry when someone disagrees with her. I'd been hitting the gym hard since the breakup, partly for stress relief, and partly because I had extra time without wedding planning consuming my evenings. Yulia was doing deadlifts at the squat rack next to mine, perfect form, lifting more than most guys in the gym. When she noticed me watching her technique, she smiled and asked if I was checking her form or just being creepy. Checking your form. Most people lift with their back instead of their legs. You actually know what you're doing. We grabbed coffee after the gym and she asked what I did for work. When I told her about the motorcycle shop, her eyes lit up. That's so cool. Is it true that Harleys are harder to handle than sport bikes? No shame about blue-collar work, just genuine interest and respect. When I offered to teach her to ride, she jumped at the chance. Yulia's different from Susan in every way that matters. She's got her own money, her own business, her own goals. Doesn't need anyone to take care of her or validate her choices. When we go out to dinner, she insists on splitting the check until I convince her to let me pay. We weren't officially dating, though. I wasn't jumping to another relationship that fast. But we were enjoying each other's company as friends. For now. When Yulia met Daniel and my dad a month later, Daniel's verdict was immediate approval. Bro, she looks at you like you're the only guy in the room, not like she's shopping for a husband. Daniel, we're not dating yet. Shut up, dude. You're acting like it's rocket science. My dad's approval was even better. Son, this one's a keeper. I can tell. 4 months after the breakup, I'm at my shop working on a custom job when my phone rings. Unknown number, but I answered anyway because sometimes customers call from different phones. Blake? It's me. Susan. Crying. Hard. My first instinct was to hang up immediately. We had nothing to talk about. But something in her voice made me stay on the line. How'd you get this number? Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you. She'd gotten my number from Andrew, apparently. Showed up at the shop crying. Convinced him to give her my personal cell because it was an emergency. Turns out she made a horrible mistake and needed me back. The kicker? She was pregnant, Chad was gone, and she had nothing. He'd used her, told her he'd always loved her, gotten her to break up with me, then disappeared the second she told him about the baby. Sounds like you picked the wrong guy. I picked wrong. You were the right guy. You're stable and dependable and good and beneath your social class. I remember. Blake, please, I have nothing. Chad moved back to Denver without telling anyone. My parents are furious with me. I can't afford my apartment alone. Apparently, his consulting firm offered him a transfer to Denver, and he took it immediately. Didn't tell Susan, didn't discuss it, just informed her 2 days before he left. Call your friends. They had a lot to say about what a catch you were. They're not talking to me either. Now they think I'm an idiot for leaving you for Chad. Finally, something we agree on. She begged me to give her a chance, offered counseling and prenups, anything I wanted. I do love you. I realized it when I lost you. You realized it when you got knocked up and abandoned by Prince Charming. I hung up and immediately blocked the number. But she didn't give up. Started showing up at my shop, crying in the parking lot about how sorry she was. Bad for business and worse for my peace of mind. First time she showed up bawling in the parking lot, I ignored her. Second time, I had Andrew tell her she wasn't welcome. Third time, I started snapping photos. That's when I filed the restraining order. The look on her face when the bailiff served her with the restraining order was priceless. Pure shock that actions have consequences, that showing up at someone's workplace repeatedly after being told to leave is actually illegal. 6 months later, I'm at a bike rally in Sturgis with Yulia when my phone buzzes. Text from an unknown number with a photo attached. It's Susan, obviously pregnant, working behind the counter at some chain restaurant. The message says, "Thought you'd want to see how your ex is doing. Karma's a witch." A friend? Probably one of her former bridesmaids who'd turned against her after the whole Chad situation blew up. Susan had burned a lot of bridges with her choices. But honestly, looking at that photo didn't give me any satisfaction. Just confirmed that I'd dodged a bullet the size of a freight train. Susan looked miserable. tired, swollen, wearing a polyester uniform, dealing with whatever customers throw at food service workers. Yulia saw the text and just shrugged. Sucks for her, but that's what happens when you blow up your life for the wrong guy. No drama, no jealousy, no need to analyze Susan's situation or compare herself. Chad never came back to Austin. Word through mutual acquaintances is he got transferred to the company's London office right after the Denver move. McKinsey probably transferred him to avoid any drama from his Austin situation. Corporate consulting firms don't like personal scandals affecting their reputation. Much easier to ship him overseas where nobody knows about the pregnant ex-girlfriend he abandoned. Susan's parents cut her off completely after the whole mess became public. They were more embarrassed about their daughter's poor choices than concerned about her welfare. Rich people problems. Image matters more than family. Her social media went dark after the restaurant photo started circulating. No more posts about toxic masculinity. Just silence and probably a lot of regret. Last I heard, she was living in some apartment complex on the south side, working double shifts to save up for baby expenses. The BMW got repossessed, the designer clothes got sold, the country club membership got canceled. Meanwhile, Yulia and I were officially dating. She moved into my house. She loves the shop, gets along with my crew, and thinks custom motorcycles are badass. She's already talking about converting part of the garage into a workshop where she can restore vintage furniture. My dad's thrilled about Yulia too. This one's got her head screwed on straight and her priorities in order. She makes you better without trying to change you. Happy for you, son. What can I say? Sometimes the trash does take itself out. Call me old school, but I don't believe in building a life with someone who's still stuck in spring break mode with her friend. If that's insecurity, I'll take it over stupidity any day. Now, Redditors, tell me how you'd handle it if you were in my shoes. Question is, for both teams though, LOL. Edit. All right, Reddit. I thought my story was done, but the universe had other plans. Posting an update soon. This time, sponsored by your favorite Ken doll Chad. You're not gonna believe what happened. Update. What's up, guys? I'm back with an update. 2 months after the restraining order, I'm delivering a custom Ducati to this tech exec in Westlake Hills. Beautiful bike. 2018 Panigale V4 with custom paint, upgraded suspension, full exhaust system, the works. Guy paid cash, no questions asked. Anyways, while I'm going through the delivery checklist, he mentions he's flying to London for meetings with McKinsey consultants. Bunch of pretentious kids who think they know everything about business because they went to fancy schools. Then, he drops the name that made me pay attention. There's this one douche, Chad Morrison, acts like he invented consulting. Kid's probably never built anything real in his life. There you are, Barbie face. Turns out Chad was just as arrogant and useless in London as he'd been in Austin. Guy's supposedly some hotshot, but every recommendation he makes costs us money without improving anything. Classic consultant, great at talking, terrible at doing. Did some digging on LinkedIn after I got home. Chad's posting nonstop about his exciting London chapter and commitment to excellence. Meanwhile, his Instagram shows him partying in clubs and dating British women while Susan's working double shifts pregnant with his kid. The contrast was stark. Chad living it up in expensive London clubs while the mother of his child serves hamburgers to pay rent. Even for a douchebag consultant, that was cold. Chad thought London was a fresh start. I just gave Karma his forwarding address. So I wrote the most professional email of my life to McKinsey London HR. Explained how their consultant abandoned a pregnant woman in Austin after breaking up her engagement. Attached screenshots of him partying in London while she works food service to survive. Mentioned how this might not align with their integrity values and corporate responsibility standards. Professional, but pointed. Let them draw their own conclusions about having someone like Chad represent their company. But that wasn't enough. Found Chad's parents through social media, William and Nicole Morrison, big money Dallas real estate family. The kind who care more about reputation than anything else. Found his mom's college roommate Martha on Facebook. She volunteers at a pregnancy center in Austin. Helps single mothers get resources and support. Funny how I accidentally ran into her at the farmer's market and mentioned knowing this struggling single mom Susan who got abandoned by some rich Dallas kid named Chad Morrison. Martha was horrified. Nicole Morrison's son? Oh my goodness, she would be mortified. Patricia's always going on about Chad's success and character. She has no idea. 3 weeks later, my client calls about commissioning another bike. Hey, remember that Chad guy from McKinsey? Got pulled from London and transferred back to Dallas. Some HR issue and family pressure. Looked miserable during our video call. Chad's Instagram told the whole story. London party pics stopped dead. Fancy restaurant photos disappeared. One sad post from a basic Dallas office building. Excited for new opportunities back home. The comments were brutal. London friends asking what happened. Dallas family friends posting fake sympathy messages. Someone had tagged Susan asking if this was her baby daddy, which led to a bunch of people connecting the dots. Turns out Martha didn't just call Chad's mom. She organized a Highland Park ladies' intervention, got all her friends involved, made it a community issue. Nicole was so embarrassed she yanked Chad back to Dallas immediately. Not only did she make him quit McKinsey, she forced him to work for Daddy's real estate company at a fraction of his consulting salary. And most importantly, she made him set up a trust fund for Susan and the baby to avoid further scandal. The trust fund was the best part. Chad went from six-figure consulting salary to working for his parents under strict supervision, paying monthly support to the woman he'd abandoned, all because his mommy was embarrassed by his behavior. So now Chad's stuck in Dallas working for his parents, financially supporting the kid he tried to abandon, and his consulting career is toast. Susan's getting monthly payments that probably beat her restaurant wages, plus she qualified for healthcare through the trust fund. Didn't lift a wrench or throw a punch, just let karma work through LinkedIn and soccer moms. And remember, folks, if she ever tells you he's just a friend, smile, nod, and start collecting receipts. Peace out, Reddit. Thanks for following this saga till the end. Appreciate the comments and support. Story 5. My wife rejected me. In bed, don't touch me, I have self-respect. Next day, I rejected her demands. Don't ask me, I have self-respect. She lost her mind. Sup, Reddit. My wife thought she could treat me like garbage while I funded her lifestyle, then acted shocked when I finally stopped swiping the card, grab your popcorn, and enjoy the shit show. Name's Dean, 36 male. For the first 6.5 years, Grace and I had a solid marriage. We met at a supply chain conference in Dallas, bonded over terrible hotel coffee and worse keynote speakers. She worked in event planning back then, had her own thing going. We got married after dating for 18 months, bought a house in the Chicago suburbs, did the whole American dream routine. Things were good. We traveled, hit up Nashville, Austin, took a trip to Colorado. She had her friends, I had mine. We did couple stuff on weekends, grabbed dinner at that place she loved, watched movies on the couch, normal marriage things. Nothing that would make you write a country song, but nothing that would make you call a lawyer either. Then about 5 months ago, something shifted. Started small. Little comments about how I never put enough effort into date nights. Eye rolls when I'd suggest cooking instead of ordering. This new habit of correcting me in front of people like I'm some kid, your friend Carter, not Carl. We went to Mexico, not Miami. You're thinking of your other job. Her friend Monica started coming around more. This realtor who drives a white Audi and treats every conversation like she's closing a deal. Divorced twice, collects alimony like baseball cards, and has opinions about everyone's relationship. Suddenly Grace is talking about how I don't appreciate her enough, how marriage should be a partnership with equal effort, how she deserves better treatment. I'm thinking, better treatment? I work 60-hour weeks managing supply chain logistics for a freight company. I pay the mortgage on our 4-bedroom house. I paid off her student loans last year. Her car's in my name because her credit's garbage from some shopping spree phase she went through before we met. I'm not some absent husband who rolled in at midnight reeking of cigarettes. I'm just a regular guy trying to keep things running. But I didn't push back. Figured it was a phase. Maybe she was stressed about turning 31. Maybe Monica was in her ear about something. I stayed calm, kept doing my thing, figured it would pass, it didn't. 3 months ago, she quit her event planning job. Said her boss was micromanaging her. Before that, it was a coordinator position at a nonprofit she left because the hours were too demanding. Before that was something else with some other excuse. She's been unemployed since January, spending her days at yoga classes and lunch dates while I'm handling shipments from Cleveland to Atlanta, wondering when she's going to start contributing again. I didn't nag, just kept the bills paid and my mouth shut. Figured she'd find her footing eventually. 2 months ago, the bedroom started getting cold. She'd pull away when I reached for her at night. Say she was tired, say she had a headache, say she just wanted to sleep. Fine, whatever. Not every night has to be date night, but it became every night. Then it became her flinching when I'd touch her shoulder. Then it became her moving to the far edge of the bed like I had a disease. Last night was the breaking point. I'm lying in bed reading something on my phone. Grace is next to me doing her nighttime routine. She gets into bed, settles in on her side facing away from me. I put my phone down, lean over to kiss her goodnight. My hand brushes her shoulder. She jerks away like I electrocuted her. Don't touch me, she says, and her voice could probably slice through steel. I respect myself too much for that. I'm frozen there, hand still in the air. What? You heard me, she says, still not looking at me. I respect myself. I'm not just available whenever you feel like it. Grace, I say, keeping my voice level. I was going to kiss you goodnight. That's it. She finally turns around, and there's this look on her face, completely shut down, like she's been waiting for this moment to make some grand statement. I don't care what you were going to do. My body, my choice. And I choose not to be touched by someone who doesn't appreciate me. Someone who doesn't appreciate you? I say, and I can hear the edge creeping into my voice now. What exactly am I not appreciating? She sits up now, getting that holier-than-thou attitude she's been carrying lately. That's exactly the problem, Dean. You think money equals love. You don't see me. You don't value me as a person. I laugh. It just comes out because this is so ridiculous. It's almost performance art. I don't value you? You haven't worked in 5 months, Grace. You spend your days at brunch with Monica, talking about how hard marriage is while I'm in traffic for 2 hours dealing with actual problems. Her face goes red. Get out. What? Get out of this bed. Sleep somewhere else. I don't want you near me. I stare at her for a long moment, looking for some sign this is a joke, some weird test, something other than my wife of 7 years telling me to get out of my own bed. Fine, I say, grabbing my pillow. Good luck paying the bills with your self-respect. I walk out, close the door, and head to the guest room. I lie there staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle, and something clicks. This isn't a phase. This isn't stress. This is her rewriting the rules and expecting me to just accept it. Not happening. I pull out my phone and text Carter. You around tomorrow? Need to grab a drink and talk. He responds 30 seconds later. Yeah, man. Everything good? I type back. Define good. 20 minutes later, I'm still awake when I hear Grace go into the bathroom. Hear the water running. Hear her doing her whole routine like nothing happened. Like she didn't just blow up 7 years of marriage over a goodnight kiss. I don't go back in there. Don't apologize. Don't try to smooth things over. I just lie there thinking about my next move. I've been playing defense for 5 months, blocking her shots, absorbing her hits, trying to minimize damage. That's done now. Time to switch it up. And I'm pretty good at playing offense. Morning comes and I'm up at 6 out of habit. The house is quiet. Grace is still asleep or pretending to be. I shower in the guest bathroom, get dressed, head downstairs to make coffee. Our neighbor Barb's already in her front yard when I step outside to grab the paper. Barb's this 60-something woman who's lived on our street since dinosaurs roamed the earth, knows everything about everyone. Morning, Dean, she calls out. You're up early. Everything okay with you and Grace? Everything's fine, Barb. She gives me this suspicious look. Well, if you two need anything, I'm right here. I nod, head back inside. Barb's harmless, but she's also going to be all over this when things inevitably blow up. Note to self, when the divorce goes through, Barb's probably host a neighborhood meeting about it. Bring casseroles. The whole production suburban gossip networks make the CIA look like amateurs. Inside, Grace is up. She's in the kitchen in yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, phone in hand. She doesn't look at me when I walk in. Morning, I say, just to see what happens. She doesn't respond, just keeps scrolling. I pour myself coffee, lean against the counter. We doing the silent treatment now? I don't have anything to say to you, she says, still not looking up. Cool, I say. Then don't expect me to stick around tonight. Got plans. Her eyes flick up for half a second. What plans? Poker night at Carter's. I say it casual. I've been going to Carter's poker nights for 6 years. Same guys, same setup, twice a month like clockwork. On a Thursday? She says. Yeah, Grace, on a Thursday. Carter texted last night, moved it up because Owen's got some conference this weekend. Amazing how she can go from complete silence to suddenly caring about my schedule the second I mention going somewhere without her. Trying to control me while pretending it's concern classic move. She sets her phone down now, crosses her arms. You can't just make plans without telling me. I just did, I say, rinsing my mug in the sink. And technically, I did tell you. Just now. That's not how marriage works, Dean. I turn around, look at her straight on. You told me to get out of our bed last night because I tried to kiss you. You said you don't want to be touched by me. So I'm giving you space. Be grateful. Her mouth opens like she's about to fire something back, but I'm already walking out the door. At work, I'm running on 4 hours of sleep and pure spite. Got 3 shipments delayed in Ohio, a client screaming about late delivery, and my assistant manager calling in sick again. I spend 4 hours on the phone fixing other people's problems, then another 2 in a planning meeting that could have been an email. Carter texts around noon. You good for tonight or was that an SOS? I text back. Both. He sends back a laughing emoji and, bring cash. I'm taking it all tonight. By 6 p.m., I'm at Carter's place. He's got a downtown condo, bachelor pad setup, leather furniture, massive TV, poker table. Owen's already there, quiet as usual, setting up his chips. Owen works IT security, never talks about it. He's got this deadpan delivery that makes everything funny. And then there's Brendan, sales guy, currently on his second marriage, paying alimony to the first wife. Dean, Carter says when I walk in, you look like garbage. What happened? Grace, I say, dropping into a chair. Say no more, Brendan says, dealing cards. Women are complicated. That's why I married too. Owen doesn't look up from his chips. How's that working out? I'm broke and happy, Brendan says. Living the dream. That's not what you said last week when you were crying about your bank account, Owen says. I wasn't crying. Carter laughs. You guys want to actually play poker? Or should we schedule a therapy session? We're settling into the first hand when there's a knock on the door. Carter gets up to answer it, and I hear her voice immediately. Grace. She walks in like she owns the place. Monica right behind her. Hope you guys don't mind, Grace says. All fake sweetness. We were in the neighborhood. Carter looks at me. I shake my head slightly. Carter's too polite to kick them out, even though this is clearly some ambush Grace planned. Sure, he says. Pull up a chair. They settle in on the couch behind the poker table. Monica immediately starts asking about the condo, how much Carter pays, whether he owns or rents. We're halfway through a hand when Grace starts. Dean, she says, loud enough for everyone to hear, you're probably going to lose all your money tonight. Again. The table goes quiet. Brendan looks at me. Owen stares at his cards. Carter deals the next one slower than necessary. I look at her, calm. If I lose, it's my money. You're not exactly bringing in income right now. Her smile twitches. Oh, come on, don't be sensitive. It's just a joke. Yeah, I say, tossing a chip into the pot. Hilarious. Monica laughs this fake laugh. Grace is just keeping you humble, Dean. All men need that I ignore her. Focus on my cards. But Grace is not done. 20 minutes later, she tries again. We're in the middle of a big hand, almost 300 in the pot, when she leans forward. Dean, maybe you should fold. Strategy's clearly not your strong suit. Owen looks up from his cards. Actually, his win rate's higher than everyone here except Carter. Grace blinks. What? We keep stats, Owen says, completely deadpan. Dean's up 4,000 over the last 2 years. Brendan points at Owen with his drink. Why you gotta bring that up right now? Making me look bad. Owen shrugs. It's just data. Well, money isn't everything, Monica says, trying to save face for Grace. It is in poker, Owen replies, not even looking up. The whole table's watching now, waiting to see what I do. Carter's got this little smirk like he's enjoying the show. I fold my hand anyway, stand up, grab my jacket. I'm out. Grace's eyes go wide. What? You're leaving? Yep, I say, looking at Carter. Sorry, man, I'll catch you later. Carter nods, respecting it. But why? Grace says. And I can hear the panic creeping in now. I look at her, then at the table, then back at her. Because I don't play where I'm not respected, I walk out. Door clicks shut behind me. Clean exit, done. My phone starts blowing up before I hit the elevator. Grace calling, I decline. Monica texting, I delete it. By the time I'm in my car, I've got 4 missed calls. I text Carter, my bad for the scene. He texts back immediately. Don't apologize. That was the most interesting hand we've played all year. I drive home the long way. Grace showed up to humiliate me in front of my friends. When it didn't work, when I just left, she panicked. She wants control. Wants me to chase her, beg her, prove myself. Yeah, no. I didn't sign up for that game show. I get home around 10. Grace's car is already in the driveway. I walk in and she's in the living room, arms crossed, ready for round 2. Really, Dean? She says, you just embarrassed me like that? I embarrassed you, I say, heading for the stairs. You showed up uninvited to my poker night just to take shots at me. That's on you. I was trying to spend time with you, she says, voice rising. No, I say, stopping on the 3rd step. You were trying to prove something to Monica. Maybe prove something to yourself. I'm sleeping in the guest room again. Figure out what you want from this marriage, because I'm done guessing you can't just... She starts, but I'm already upstairs, door closed, done with the conversation. I lie there thinking about next steps. This isn't fixable. This is broken at the foundation. Tomorrow I'm calling a lawyer. The next morning Grace is gone before I wake up. No note, no text, just an empty house. Fine by me. I make breakfast, actually enjoy the silence. Head to work without any drama. Around noon my phone rings. Unknown number from Milwaukee. I almost don't answer, but something tells me to pick up. Dean, a woman's voice says, sharp, judgmental. It's Caroline. Caroline, my mother-in-law, a woman who's never liked me and has been taking shots at our marriage for 7 years at every family dinner. Hi, Caroline, I say, keeping my voice neutral. Grace called me this morning. She's very upset. You've been emotionally distant. Sleeping in another room, I was at poker night. Caroline, my poker night. She showed up uninvited. She says you've been hostile to everyone. Grace deserves better than this. Caroline, if she deserves better, tell her to go find it. I'm done being lectured by you. How dare you? I hung up. That evening, I'm sitting on my porch with a soda when Barb materializes from nowhere. Saw Grace leave with suitcases this morning, she says. Everything okay? She went to her mother's, I say, taking some space. Barb sits down on my porch steps uninvited. It's about who's willing to be more stubborn. You want this to work. Outlast her. I'm not trying to outlast anyone, I say. I'm just tired of being the enemy in my own house. She stands up, then maybe stop defending and start attacking. She walks away before I can ask what that means. Grace comes back 2 days later with her mother in tow. Caroline walks in like she owns the place, immediately starts rearranging throw pillows. Dean, she says, barely looking at me. We need to talk. No, we don't, I say. This is between me and Grace. I'm her mother. I have a right. You're a guest in my house, Caroline. Act like it or leave. Her face goes purple. Grace jumps in. See? This is exactly what I'm talking about. He's hostile to everyone. Your mother just walked into my house and started criticizing me within 30 seconds. Because someone needs to, Caroline says. I grab my keys. I'm going to Wisconsin for the weekend. You two can have the house. You can't just leave, Grace says. Watch me. Wisconsin's a 3-hour drive and I make it in 2.5. The cabin's exactly as I left it last month. Small, rustic, quiet. I spend the weekend fishing, reading, not thinking about Grace or Caroline or any of it. When I get back Sunday night, Grace is calmed down. Caroline's gone. We exist in the same house for another week without talking much. Then Wednesday morning, she corners me in the kitchen before work. What's this? I ask. Marriage counseling, she says. I found someone. We have an appointment Friday. I'm not going, I say. Dean, we need help. No, Grace. You need to decide what you want from this marriage. Because I'm done being your emotional punching bag while you figure yourself out. I'm trying to fix this, she says, getting louder. By ambushing me with appointments I didn't agree to? By bringing your mother here to attack me? That's not fixing anything. My phone buzzes. Text from Carter. Monica's throwing a barbecue Saturday. You and Grace invited. Should I make an excuse for you? I text back, I'll be there. This is going to be fun. Saturday comes and we show up to Monica's house separately. I get there first, grab a spot with Carter and Owen near the grill. Monica's backyard is ridiculous. In-ground pool with a waterfall feature, outdoor kitchen with 3 different grills. Professional landscaping divorce settlements apparently pay well. Brendan's there too, holding court near the drink cooler, with some story about a client who bought 30 hospital beds cash. Grace shows up 20 minutes later with Caroline in tow. Because of course she brought her mother. They make a beeline for Monica and 2 other women I don't know. All of them immediately start that high-pitched cackling that sounds awful. This is going to be a disaster, Carter says, watching them. Yep, I say, taking a drink. Should have stayed home. Why'd you come? Owen asks. Curiosity, I say. Want to see how bad it gets. Brendan walks over with a plate loaded with burgers. Your wife's giving you the death stare from across the yard. We're about an hour in. Food's on the grill. People are mingling. When Monica calls out across the yard. Dean, she yells. Can you help Grace bring out the dishes? It's not a request. It's a command. Loud enough for everyone to hear. A test to see if I'll jump when she snaps her fingers. Half the yard turns to look. I look at her, then at Grace, then back at my conversation. No thanks, I say. I'm good. Dead silence spreads across the yard. Monica's face goes through about 5 emotions in 2 seconds. Shock, anger, embarrassment, more anger. Excuse me, she says. You've got 2 legs and 2 arms, I say, voice completely casual. Pretty sure you can handle dishes without me. Grace jumps in now, sounding tense. Dean, don't be rude. No, I say, still not moving. I'm just not taking orders at a party. If you need help, ask like an adult. Don't announce it like I'm the hired help. Caroline steps forward now from wherever she was lurking, pointing at me like I'm a disobedient child. You will not speak to these women like that. I stand up now, hand my drink to Carter. Actually, Caroline, I'll speak however I want. This isn't your house. You're not my mother. And I'm done pretending you have any authority over me. The yard's completely quiet now. Even the kids stopped running around. A guy with grill tongs stands there frozen in midair. Eli's trying to disappear into his lawn chair. Grace's face is red. You're embarrassing me. No, I say, walking toward my car. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm just refusing to participate. Have a great party. I leave. Second party, second exit. I'm developing a signature move. My phone explodes before I'm out of the driveway. Grace calling. Monica texting. I ignore all of it. 3 exits from 3 events in 2 weeks. At least I'm consistent. I drive to a restaurant, grab dinner alone, watch a game on TV. My phone keeps buzzing. Finally, I shut it off and enjoy the silence. When I get home around 9, the house is empty. There's a note on the counter. Staying at Monica's tonight. We need space. I crumple the note and toss it. Space. Sure. Whatever helps her sleep at night. Monday morning, I call Janet. Carter gave me her number months ago just in case. She's a divorce attorney. I need a consultation, I tell her assistant. She's got an opening Wednesday at 2, the assistant says. Wednesday comes and I'm sitting in her office downtown. 17th floor, windows overlooking Lake Michigan, shelves full of legal books and framed credentials. Janet's in her late 40s, salt and pepper hair pulled back, doesn't miss a thing. Tell me what's happening, she says. I lay it all out. The bedroom rejection, the poker night ambush, the mother-in-law invasion, the barbecue disaster. Janet takes notes, asks questions. Does she work? No. Who pays the bills? I do. Whose name is on the house? Both, but I paid the down payment and handle the mortgage. The cars? Mine's in my name, hers is in my name because of her credit. Any kids? No. Good, Janet says. That makes it cleaner. We go over assets. The house is worth about $400,000. Mortgage is down to $260 retirement accounts I've been funding. Savings I built up before we got married. The cabin in Wisconsin is mine. I bought it 6 years before we met. That's separate property, Janet confirms. She's got no claim. What's my timeline? I ask. File, serve her, negotiate. 6 months minimum in Illinois, could be longer if she fights. She's going to fight, I say. Janet smiles. They all do, until they see the legal bills. Then they get reasonable. I leave her office with a plan. File the papers, get her served, move into my own place. Clean break. That evening, I start apartment hunting. Find a place in the city, 1 bedroom, 12th floor, parking included. Sign the lease that night. Move-in date is 2 weeks from Friday. I don't tell Grace. She'll find out soon enough. The next 2 weeks, I'm preparing moving my stuff to storage, organizing documents, transferring money to accounts only in my name. Grace is too busy with Monica to notice. She's barely home anyway. I'm sleeping in the guest room every night. We barely speak. She leaves passive-aggressive notes. I leave cash on the counter and go to work. Barb catches me loading boxes into my truck one morning. Moving out? She asks, not even trying to be subtle. Yep, I say. She nods. Good for you. You want my advice? Not really, Barb. She gives it anyway. Don't let her make you the bad guy. Women like that rewrite history to make themselves the victim. You stick to your truth. Thanks, Barb, I say, actually meaning it. Friday comes and Janet files the papers. I get confirmation at 2 p.m. process servers scheduled for Monday morning. I spend the weekend moving the last of my stuff out. Grace is at her mother's in Milwaukee. Doesn't even know it's happening. Monday morning, 9 a.m., the process server shows up at our house I know because Grace calls me 30 seconds later, sounding pissed. What is this? She says. Divorce papers, I say calmly. I'm done, Grace. There's a pause. You can't be serious. We can fix this. I'm serious. And no, we can't. She hangs up. I expect the screaming to start immediately, but it doesn't. Instead, I get nothing for 2 hours. Then a text. Can we at least talk in person? I don't respond. An hour later. Dean, please. I know I made mistakes. Still nothing from me. By evening, the tone shifts. Another text. You're really going to throw away 7 years like this? Then, fine, if this is what you want. But the next morning is when things really fall apart. She calls at 7 a.m., and this time she's crying. Real or fake, I can't tell anymore. Dean, please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll change. I'll do whatever you want. You had 5 months to change, I say. You chose not to. Now deal with the consequences. The tears stop instantly. I'm going to fight this, she says, and her voice gets hard. You'll regret walking away from me. Fight all you want. My lawyer's ready. I hung up. She calls back immediately. I decline and turn my phone off. That evening, I'm at my new apartment, unpacking boxes, when someone starts pounding on my door. I look through the peephole and it's Grace. Her face is red, makeup smeared, hair a mess. I don't open the door. Dean, she yells through the door. Open up. We need to talk. No, we don't, I say from the other side. Please, she says, and now she's crying again. I was confused. Monica was in my head. I'll fire her as a friend. I'll do anything. Interesting how we're at the bargaining stage already. Usually takes longer. She must be more desperate than I thought. Grace, go home, I say. This is your fault, she screams, flipping instantly. You gave up on us. You quit. You're weak. I'm done engaging, I say. You've got my lawyer's number. Talk to her. I'll take everything, she yells. The house, the money, your retirement. You'll have nothing. You can try, I say. She pounds on the door for another 5 minutes. Yells threats, cries, begs, yells more threats. Finally, building security shows up and escorts her out. They call me after. Sir, is everything okay? Do you need to file a report? No, I say. Just a domestic situation. It's handled. Over the next week, she tries everything. Day 1, she tries apologetic. Long texts about how she's been reflecting. How she sees where she went wrong. How she wants to rebuild trust. I don't respond. Day 2, she tries bargaining. Shows up at my work with coffee, asking if we can just talk for 5 minutes. Security escorts her out. She waits in the parking lot for an hour before giving up. Day 3, she sends Monica. She corners me at a coffee shop near my office. Starts her pitch about how Grace is just scared and confused. I walk out mid-sentence. Day 4. The anger breaks through texts shift from apologetic to accusatory. You gave up on us. You quit. You're weak. This is all your fault. Day 5, she tries using mutual friends. People I barely know start texting me about giving Grace another chance, about how marriage takes work. I block them all, and it goes on. Each day she was getting more unhinged. Day 7. Carter texts, Grace is telling people you abandoned her for no reason. Just FYI. I text back, let her talk. The truth comes out eventually. Janet calls me Friday afternoon. She's making noise about wanting the house, spousal support, and half your retirement accounts. I told her to get comfortable being disappointed. What's our play? I ask. We offer her exactly what she's entitled to, and not a penny more. Illinois is equitable distribution. She gets half the marital assets. That's the house equity and retirement contributions made during marriage. No spousal support because she's capable of working. She can take it, or we go to court, and she pays legal fees. Sounds good to me, I say. By week 3, Grace is getting desperate. She starts posting on social media about betrayal and broken trust. Vague posts that are clearly about me. Monica shares them all with commentary about how men are trash. I don't respond. Don't engage. Just let her shout into the void. Then week 4 happens. I'm at the cabin for the weekend. Invited Carter and Owen up for fishing and grilling. Brendan was supposed to come but bailed last minute. Something about his second wife having a meltdown. Classic Brendan problems. We're out on the dock Saturday afternoon, completely relaxed. Owen's actually caught 2 bass, which he won't stop mentioning. Carter's caught nothing but keeps insisting his technique is superior. I'm just enjoying the quiet. This is the life, Owen says, reeling in his 3rd fish of the day. Then we hear a car coming up the drive. We all look at each other. Nobody should be here. The cabin's 40 minutes from the nearest town, down a dirt road that doesn't show up on GPS. The car door slams. We hear heels on gravel. Not good. Then we hear her voice. Grace comes around the side of the cabin and she's a mess. She was wearing a cocktail dress and stiletto heels like she just came from a restaurant. Swaying on those heels, eyes unfocused. Dean, she yells, spotting me on the dock. We need to talk. Right now. Owen looks at me, eyebrows raised. Want us to leave? I shake my head. Nah, stay. This should be entertaining. Grace stumbles toward the dock, almost trips twice. Carter mutters something about liability insurance and I hold my laugh. You can't just ignore me, she says, getting closer, pointing at me. I'm your wife. You're my soon-to-be ex-wife, I say, not moving from my chair. And you're trespassing. This is my property. She stops at the edge of the dock, wobbling in her heels. The dock's only 5 feet wide and she's taking up most of it. I came all the way here to make you listen to me. I'm not interested, I say. Go home. You ruined my life, she says. You gave up on us. You're a quitter. No. I just stopped playing a rigged game where the rules changed every time I started winning. Carter snorts into his drink. Owen's biting his lip. Who the heck are you? Grace says, squinting at them. Are these your new friends? Did you replace me already? These are the same friends I've had for 6 years, I say. You're just too self-absorbed to remember. Hey, Owen says. completely deadpan. That toast took me 3 hours to write. Carter starts laughing. I'm self-absorbed? She yells, getting louder. I gave you 7 years of my life, and I paid for all 7 of them, I say. What exactly did you give me besides attitude and ultimatums? I loved you, she says. Like this is some grand revelation. You loved the lifestyle, I correct. You loved what I provided. That's not true, she says. Her voice cracks. Grace, I say, standing up now. You kicked me out of our bed for trying to kiss you. You humiliated me in front of my friends. You brought your mother to my house to attack me. You showed up at parties just to order me around like hired help. You made it very clear I wasn't good enough for you. So I left. That's on you. But I regret it, she says, full on sobbing now, makeup running everywhere. I was confused. Monica said I deserved better, and I believed her. Monica's divorced twice and miserable, I say. Maybe don't take marriage advice from someone who can't keep one. Carter raises his drink. Cheers to that. You're being cruel, Grace says. I'm being honest. You wanted better? Go find it. But you don't get to show up drunk at my cabin throwing tantrums because I called your bluff. I came here to fight for us, she says. No, I say. You came here because you're realizing nobody else is going to put up with your BS. She just stares at me, tears running down her face, makeup completely destroyed now. Owen stands up, holding out his phone. Ma'am, you should probably get a ride home. You're not in any condition to drive. This is none of your concern, she yells at him. Then she turns back to me. This is what you want? To humiliate me in front of strangers? You humiliated yourself, I say. I hate you, she says. I shrug. Join the club. Your mother's president. She lets out this sound, half scream, half sob, and turns to storm off dramatically, which would have been more effective if she wasn't unstable and wearing 4-inch heels on a wooden dock. She makes it maybe 5 steps before her heel catches between 2 boards. For a second, she's teetering there, arms windmilling like she's trying to take flight. Then gravity wins. She goes down face first, full-on faceplant into the dock. The impact makes this hollow thud that echoes across the lake. Her dress rides up, one shoe flies off into the water with a plop, and she's just sprawled there, making this muffled sound into the wood. Owen's got his phone out before she even hits the deck. Carter's physically shaking with the effort of holding his laugh. His face is turning red. Grace pushes herself up slowly. Pieces of dock stuck to her forehead. There's a red mark forming on her cheek. Her hair hangs in clumps. She looks like she just lost a fight with a ceiling fan. Screw all of you! Did you just take pictures? Did you? She slurs at Owen, still on all fours. Video, actually, Owen says. Delete it right now! Owen looks at his phone, swipes a few times. Nope, I don't think I will. This is quality content. Carter loses it. Just starts laughing. Deep, gasping laughs. The kind where you can't breathe. Grace struggles to her feet. One shoe on, one shoe gone. The red mark on her face is already starting to bruise. She's got splinters in her palms that she's trying to pick out while maintaining whatever dignity she thinks she has left. You're all terrible people, she says, voice shaking. I hate all of you! She tries to storm off again, realizes she only has one shoe, takes it off, and throws it at me. Misses by about 3 feet. It lands in the lake next to the first one. Well, now you're littering, Owen observes. Should we call the DNR? Carter's sitting on the dock now, just completely unable to function from laughing. Grace limps barefoot toward her car, dress torn at the hem, looking absolutely defeated. Carter pulls out his phone. I'm calling her an Uber. She's definitely not driving. Good call, I say. Also, send me that video. Already did, Owen says. This is the best thing I've filmed since my nephew's birthday party when the clown got attacked by wasps. 10 minutes later, an Uber shows up. The driver takes one look at Grace's wrecked face and torn dress and his jaw drops. Carter talks to him, probably tips him extra and explains she's upset, not abused. Grace gets in the Uber still crying. Her car sits in my driveway. Both her shoes are in my lake. Carter comes back to the dock. Well, that was dramatic. Wait till her lawyer sees the settlement offer. I say Owen's still looking at his phone, grinning. I'm definitely making stickers of this. We fish for another hour. It's quiet except for the water lapping against the dock, the occasional bird call, and Owen periodically snickering at the video on his phone. 6 months later, the divorce is final. Grace got exactly what she was entitled to under Illinois law. Half the house equity after selling costs. Half the marital retirement contributions. Her car. That's it. No spousal support. The judge ruled she was capable of working. She tried arguing emotional distress and abandonment. The judge shut both down fast. Total legal fees cost me $8,000. Worth every penny. She moved in with Monica permanently after the house sold. Last I heard through the suburban gossip network that is Barb, she got a part-time job at a bank. Probably hates every minute of it. Caroline called me once after the divorce finalized. Told me I destroyed her daughter's life, that I was selfish and heartless. I told her she should have taught her daughter not to bite the hand that feeds her. She hung up. Hasn't called since. Carter and Owen come by most weekends. We do the normal bachelor stuff. Watch games, play cards, order food. Last week, Brendan joined and spent 2 hours complaining about his alimony payments. We made him pay for pizza as punishment. I'm not dating yet. Not interested. Just living on my terms for the first time in 7 years. Life is peaceful. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true. Story 6. This story is titled, My Wife's Family Pressured Me to Ditch the Prenup After I Became Wealthy, so I laid down the law and refused to be their ATM. Hi everyone. Before we dive in, a quick favor. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and makes sure you never miss out on amazing videos. Alright, let's get started. Alright, let me start from the beginning, because this mess didn't just come out of nowhere. Back when I was 23, I met Sarah. I was fresh out of college and working my first job at an IT firm in Denver. Sarah was finishing her teaching degree at the time, and we met at a mutual friend's barbecue. She had this way of making everyone laugh and feel comfortable. I'll be honest, I was hooked pretty much from day one. Sarah came from a well-off family. Her dad owned a few auto dealerships, and her mom ran a boutique in Boulder. They weren't mega rich, but they had the kind of money that made life easier. My family was solidly middle class. My dad was an electrician, my mom a nurse, and they raised me and my 2 brothers in a small but cozy house. We were never hungry, but things like vacations or new clothes were rare. Anyway, Sarah and I hit it off quickly. We started dating, and within a year, I knew she was the one. I proposed at a park where we used to hang out on lazy Sundays, and she said yes. Everything seemed perfect. Well, almost everything. Her parents, especially her dad, weren't thrilled about me. From the start, they made it clear they didn't think I was good enough for Sarah. It wasn't outright hostility, more like subtle comments that reminded me of my place. Stuff like, so Matt, what's your 5-year plan? Or, Sarah's used to a certain lifestyle. I ignored it because I loved Sarah, and she stood by me. When we started planning the wedding, her parents dropped the prenup bomb. I remember Sarah's dad calling me into his office one evening after dinner. He had this serious look on his face, like he was about to give me life-altering advice. Instead, he handed me a thick stack of papers and said, "This is just a formality, Matt. It's to protect Sarah's future. I'm sure you understand." I didn't understand. I didn't like it either. I felt insulted. Like, why did they assume I was going to take advantage of their daughter? I was barely making $40,000 a year at that IT job. But I had plans. Big ones. I wanted to prove myself, not just to them, but to Sarah and me. Still, I didn't want to cause problems. So I took the papers home and read through them with a mix of anger and confusion. The prenup basically stated that if Sarah and I ever divorced, I'd walk away with nothing but what I'd earned myself. None of her family's money, none of the assets she might inherit, nothing. It was all about protecting her, not us. I hated every line of it. I brought it up to Sarah, hoping she'd back me up. Instead, she said, "Matt, it's not a big deal. It's just paperwork. It doesn't change how I feel about you." She was calm, but I could tell she felt stuck between me and her family. I didn't want to put her in that position, so I swallowed my pride and signed it. I told myself it didn't matter because I wasn't marrying her for her family's money. Looking back, that was probably my first mistake, letting her parents set the tone for our marriage. But at the time, I thought I was doing the right thing. I figured they'd warm up to me eventually, and the prenup would be a non-issue since we were building a life together from scratch. The wedding itself was beautiful, but also a bit awkward. My family and hers didn't mix well. My brothers and a few of my cousins showed up in suits they'd borrowed or bought on sale, while Sarah's side looked like they'd stepped out of a country club catalog. There was no drama, but the divide was obvious. After we got married, we moved into a small apartment in Denver. Sarah started teaching at a local elementary school, and I kept grinding away at my IT job. Those first few years were tough but rewarding. We budgeted carefully, cooked most meals at home, and saved every penny we could. Her parents would occasionally make comments about our tight budget, but we didn't care. We were happy. Still, the prenup lingered in the back of my mind. It wasn't like I thought we'd ever need it, but it symbolized something deeper. It felt like her family didn't trust me, even after I'd married Sarah and started building a life with her. Every time her dad made a sarcastic remark about my job or our financial situation, it stung. I worked harder because of it. I wanted to prove them wrong, but the prenup never really went away. There were moments, small and fleeting, where it came up in conversation. Sarah's mom would joke about how smart they'd been to have me sign it, or her dad would bring it up when talking about protecting family assets. They said it with smiles, but it always felt like a slap in the face. Still, I didn't say anything. I kept my head down and focused on my career. I loved Sarah, and I didn't want to let her parents ruin what we had. I figured as long as we were happy, none of that other stuff mattered. But now, years later, I can see how that prenup was more than just a legal document. It was a reminder that her family didn't think I was enough. And as things started to shift in our lives, that piece of paper became the center of a storm I never saw coming. After a few years of grinding it out in my IT job, things started to change, but not overnight. It was more like little victories stacking up until they became something bigger. I was 27 when I got my first big break, but getting there wasn't as smooth as I would have liked. Back then, I was still working at the IT firm in Denver. The pay wasn't bad at the time, but it wasn't great either. I had been at the company for about 4 years, and I felt like I'd hit a wall. My role was stable, but it didn't challenge me, and there wasn't much room for growth. I knew if I wanted to make real progress, I'd have to take a risk. One of my coworkers, Jason, had started talking about this side hustle he had gotten into, freelance coding for startups. At first, I thought it sounded sketchy, like he was going to burn out juggling 2 jobs. But then he showed me his paycheck for 1 month of freelance work, and my jaw hit the floor. The guy was making double what we earned at our full-time gig. That got me thinking. I had always been good at web development and problem solving. I spent my weekends brushing up on coding languages, learning frameworks, and experimenting with side projects. Sarah thought I was crazy for spending so much time on it. "You're already working full-time," she'd say. "Why are you adding more work?" But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was an opportunity. After about 6 months of freelancing on the side, I landed a client that completely changed the game for me. They were a small tech startup looking for someone to build their entire back-end system. The pay was more than I'd ever made in a single project, but they also had the stock options they offered as part of the deal. At first, I wasn't sure if the stock options were worth much, but something about the company's vision clicked with me, so I took the gamble. For the next year, I worked like a maniac. I was still at my day job, putting in 40 hours a week, but I spent every free moment working on this startup project. Weekends, late nights, you name it. Sarah wasn't thrilled about it. She supported me, but I could tell she was frustrated that I wasn't as present as I used to be. There were arguments, mostly small ones, about me missing dinners or being glued to my laptop when we were supposed to have movie nights. I'd always say, "Just a little longer, I promise," but I don't think either of us believed it. Then, it happened. The startup I was working with got acquired by a bigger company, and my stock options skyrocketed in value. One day, I was struggling to keep up with our mortgage and car payments. The next, I had enough to pay off everything and still have a healthy cushion. I'll never forget the look on Sarah's face when I told her. She was stunned, in a good way, but I think part of her couldn't believe it was real. That moment was a turning point. I quit my IT job the following week, something I had been dreaming of for years. My boss didn't take it well. He tried to guilt-trip me into staying, saying things like, "You're one of our best people, Matt. Are you sure you want to throw this away?" But I knew I was done. I had bigger plans now. The first thing I did after quitting was take Sarah on a surprise trip to Hawaii. We had been talking about going for years, but could never afford it. This was my way of showing her that the hard work had paid off and that I hadn't forgotten about us. It was amazing. Beaches, sunsets, good food. But even there, I couldn't stop thinking about what I wanted to do next. I realized I loved working for myself. The freedom, the challenge, the sense of control. It was addictive. That's when I decided to start my own company. I used the money from the startup acquisition to launch a property management business. Real estate had always interested me, and I saw it as a stable way to grow my wealth without being tied to a desk job. Starting the company wasn't easy. There were a million things I didn't know, from legal paperwork to managing employees. But I threw myself into it the same way I had with my freelance work. I read books, attended workshops, and leaned on a mentor I'd met during my freelancing days. Slowly but surely, things started to click. By the time I was 30, things were looking up in ways I couldn't have imagined a few years earlier. The property management business I started was doing well, better than I ever thought it would. We had a growing list of clients, and I'd managed to build a reliable team that took care of most of the day-to-day operations. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just scraping by or working paycheck to paycheck. I was comfortable. I was proud of how far I'd come, and I thought I'd finally earned a little respect from Sarah's family. But respect wasn't exactly what I got. It started subtly at first. Sarah's dad, Tom, would call and ask for advice on investments. It seemed innocent enough. "Hey, Matt," he'd say, "I've been looking at this opportunity to buy some commercial property downtown. What do you think?" At first, I was happy to help. I figured he saw me as someone who'd proven himself, and I appreciated that he was finally acknowledging my expertise. But then the questions became more personal. "Do you think you could invest with me? Just to help get things off the ground?" Tom asked during one of our conversations. I hesitated. On one hand, he was family, and I wanted to be supportive. On the other hand, the deal he described sounded shaky. I politely told him I wasn't in a position to invest at the time. That was the first time I noticed a shift in Tom's attitude toward me. He didn't say anything outright, but there was a noticeable coolness the next time we saw each other. Sarah picked up on it too and asked if something had happened. I brushed it off, saying, "Nah, he's probably just stressed about business stuff." But deep down, I knew he wasn't thrilled with me saying no. Meanwhile, Sarah's mom, Diane, had her own way of making things awkward. She'd casually drop hints about how expensive life had become, mentioning how hard it was to maintain their lifestyle now that Tom was semi-retired. "We're not as young as we used to be, Matt," she'd say, smiling sweetly. "Sometimes I think about how lucky you and Sarah are to have such a strong financial foundation." Lucky. That word bugged me. It wasn't luck that got me where I was. It was years of late nights, sacrifices, and hard work. But I kept quiet because I didn't want to cause any tension. Things took a more serious turn one weekend when Sarah and I went over to her parents' house for dinner. The meal started off fine, steak, and the usual small talk. But as the evening went on, Tom brought up the prenup. "You know, Matt," he said, cutting into his steak, "I've been thinking about that agreement we made you sign back when you and Sarah got married." I froze. I hadn't thought about the prenup in years. To me, it was just a formality we'd done to appease them, something that didn't matter anymore. I figured we were past all that. "What about it?" I asked cautiously. "Well, don't you think it's a little outdated now? I mean, look at how successful you've become. You've built a great life for my daughter, and I respect that. But it seems unnecessary to keep that document in place now, doesn't it?" I glanced at Sarah, who was suddenly very interested in her mashed potatoes. It was clear she knew this was coming. "I don't know, Tom," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "It hasn't really been an issue for us. Why change something that's been working fine?" Diane chimed in. "It's just that things are different now, Matt. When you got married, we were trying to protect Sarah's future. But now that you're doing so well, it feels like the prenup doesn't make sense anymore. You're family, after all." There it was. That word. Family. It was their way of making it sound like I was the one being unreasonable if I didn't agree with them. I looked at Sarah again, hoping she'd step in and back me up. But she stayed quiet. That silence was what annoyed me the most. "Honestly, I don't see a reason to get rid of it," I said finally. "It's not like it's affecting our day-to-day lives. If anything, it's just a piece of paper that's sitting in a drawer somewhere." Tom's smile tightened, and Diane gave Sarah a look, as if to say, "Can you talk some sense into him?" But no one pushed the issue further that night. On the drive home, I brought it up with Sarah. "Why didn't you say anything back there?" I asked. She sighed, looking out the window. "Because I don't want to be stuck in the middle, Matt. You know how my parents are. They just want what's best for me." "And what about what's best for us?" I countered. "This is our marriage, not theirs. The prenup hasn't been a problem for us. So why are they so focused on it now?" She didn't have a good answer. Instead, she just said, "I'll talk to them, okay? Don't stress about it." But I did stress about it. A lot. Over the next few weeks, the pressure didn't let up. Tom and Diane kept finding ways to bring up the prenup, always framing it as just a conversation. Sarah started to get more defensive about it, saying things like, "You have nothing to lose by canceling it." That's when I started to feel like I was fighting a battle on two fronts, one against her parents and one against Sarah herself. I loved her, but it was hard not to feel like she wasn't fully on my side. The breaking point came when Diane called me one afternoon while I was at the office. She started with small talk, but quickly pivoted to the prenup again. "Matt, I really think you should consider how this looks," she said. "Keeping that document in place makes it seem like you don't trust Sarah, and that's not fair to her." I'd had enough. "With all due respect, Diane," I said, "this isn't your decision to make. Sarah and I are fine with how things are." There was a pause, and then she said something I'll never forget. "Well, if you're so determined to keep it, I guess we'll just have to see how Sarah feels about that in the long run." It wasn't outright threatening, but it sure felt like a warning. I hung up the phone, furious. That night, I told Sarah what her mom had said. She didn't seem surprised. Instead, she said, "They're just worried about me, Matt. They don't mean any harm." That's when I realized this isn't just about the prenup. It's about control. Her parents had always had a say in her life, and now they are trying to extend that control to me. Update 1. Hey everyone, it's Matt again. First off, I really appreciate the advice and support I've gotten so far. Honestly, it's been a reality check. Writing about this has made me see things more clearly, and hearing from people who've been in similar situations helps. So, here's what's been happening. Things haven't improved. If anything, the pressure has ramped up. Sarah has been bringing up the prenup more and more, and I can't ignore the fact that her tone is changing. It's no longer just, this is something we should discuss. Now it's more like, if you trust me, you'd dissolve it. We've had a few arguments about it. The last one got heated when I told her straight up, this isn't about trust, Sarah. It's about your parents trying to control us. She didn't like that and shot back with, or maybe it's about you not trusting me. What kind of husband keeps something like this in place after all these years? That one stung. I told her, the prenup hasn't been an issue for years, so why is it suddenly such a problem now? The only thing that's changed is that your parents see dollar signs. She called me paranoid, which seems to be her go-to argument now. At that point, I knew we needed a real conversation without distractions, so I suggested we take a trip to the cabin we used to love. It's this quiet little spot by the river, and I figured maybe we could reset and actually talk things through without her parents hanging over us like storm clouds. Sarah agreed, but her mood made it clear she wasn't thrilled about it. When we got there, things started off okay. The cabin was just like I remembered, peaceful, isolated, and the perfect place to clear your head. The first evening, we cooked dinner together, which felt normal for a change. But even then, there was this unspoken tension in the air. The next morning, I decided it was time to rip off the bandage. We were sitting on the dock, watching the river, and I said, Sarah, I need to know what's really going on. Is this about us, or is this about your parents? She sighed, not even trying to hide her annoyance. Matt, this is about us. My parents don't control how I think. I'm the one saying the prenup doesn't make sense anymore. I didn't buy it. Come on, Sarah. Let's not pretend your parents haven't been pushing this from the start. They're the ones who made me sign it, and now they're the ones trying to get rid of it. That's not a coincidence. She turned to me, her face serious. Do you even hear yourself? You're acting like my parents are the villains here when all they want is what's best for me. Best for you? What about what's best for us? This isn't their marriage, Sarah. It's ours. And I'm not going to let them dictate how we handle things. That's when she said something that made my blood boil. Maybe the issue isn't them, Matt. Maybe it's you. Maybe you're so wrapped up in your own insecurities that you can't see how unfair this is to me. Insecure, I shot back. You think I'm insecure because I don't want to tear up an agreement your parents insisted on? The same agreement they made me sign because they didn't trust me? She shrugged and said, well, if you can't trust me now, maybe we shouldn't even be talking about a future together. That hit me like a brick, but I refused to let her see it. Wow, so now you're threatening to leave because I won't bend to your parents' demands? Real mature, Sarah. It's not a threat, Matt, she said, her voice cold. It's just the truth. If you're so obsessed with this prenup, maybe you don't see me as your partner anymore. Maybe you're just waiting for me to screw up so you can walk away with everything. That was it. I stood up, looked her dead in the eye, and said, don't twist this around like I'm the problem here. I've worked my ass off for everything we have, and I've done it with zero help from your parents. If anyone should be questioning loyalty, it's me. She just stared at me, not saying a word, and I walked back to the cabin to cool off. The rest of the trip was a disaster. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was tense. By the time we packed up and headed home, it was clear we were on completely different pages. I've got my first therapy session this week, and I'm hoping it helps me figure out my next steps. Right now, I feel like I'm standing in the middle of a minefield, trying not to blow everything up. I love Sarah, but this situation is making me question a lot of things. If anyone's been in a situation like this, I'd love to hear how you handled it. Thanks for reading, and thanks for having my back. Update 2. Hey everyone. I wish I were coming back with better news, but things have gone from bad to worse. I'm at a point where I don't even know if my marriage can survive this. Things came to a head last Wednesday when I came home and found Sarah's entire family sitting in my living room. Her parents, her sister Amy, and even Sarah herself, waiting for me like it was some kind of intervention. The second I walked in, Tom started in on me. Matt, we've been talking, and it's time to resolve this prenup situation. It's tearing the family apart, and we can't keep living like this. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We? Last I checked, this was about my marriage, not a group project. I looked at Sarah, hoping she'd step in and diffuse things, but she just sat there, staring at the floor. Look, I said, trying to keep my cool. I've made my position clear. The prenup stays. This is not up for discussion anymore. That's when Diane chimed in. Matt, you're being unreasonable. Sarah has given everything to this marriage, and all you're doing is treating her like she's disposable. Disposable? I've spent the past years building a life for us while dealing with their constant interference. I told her. With all due respect, Diane, this isn't your business. Sarah and I need to figure this out on our own. She didn't back down. It is our business when it affects the family. If you cared about Sarah, you'd see that keeping this prenup is hurting her. Before I could respond, Tom said something that made my blood run cold. You're not the only one with options here, Matt. Sarah deserves to be protected, and if you can't see that, maybe this marriage isn't as strong as you think. It felt like a veiled threat, and I wasn't having it. Are you seriously suggesting that my marriage is conditional on me tearing up a legal document your family insisted on? You've got some nerve, Tom. The room went silent after that. I could see Amy, Sarah's younger sister, fidgeting uncomfortably. She always seemed like the odd one out in their family, kind of shy and not as involved in the drama. I didn't think much of it at the time, but looking back, I should have known something was up. Eventually, I told everyone to leave. I wasn't going to sit there and be ganged up on in my own home. Sarah stayed behind, and we had one of the worst fights we've ever had. She accused me of being stubborn and selfish, and I told her I was done being treated like a wallet by her and her parents. Things got so heated that she stormed out and said she was going to stay at her parents' house for a few days. I didn't stop her. The next day, I got a call from Amy. I was surprised because she and I don't talk much outside of family gatherings. She sounded nervous and asked if we could meet up in person. I agreed, thinking maybe she wanted to apologize for the intervention or offer some kind of explanation. When we met at a coffee shop, Amy looked like she hadn't slept. She kept glancing over her shoulder, like she was afraid someone would see her. Finally, she said, "Matt, I overheard something the other day, and I think you need to know about it." What she told me made my head spin. Apparently, Sarah and her parents had been planning something behind my back for months. Amy had overheard them talking during a family dinner when they thought she wasn't around. They were saying that the prenup has to go before Sarah can leave you, Amy said, her voice shaking. They said it's the only way she can get what she deserves. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Leave me? Why would she want to leave? Amy hesitated, then dropped the real bombshell. Because she's been seeing someone else. Her parents know, Matt. That's why they're pushing so hard to cancel the prenup. They think if she divorces you without it, she won't get anything. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I asked Amy if she was sure, and she nodded. I didn't want to believe it either, but I heard everything. They even talked about how to spin it so it looks like you're the bad guy. I sat there in shock, trying to process what she was telling me. Amy looked genuinely upset, and I could tell she wasn't lying. Why are you telling me this? I finally asked. She sighed. Because it's not right, Matt. You don't deserve this. I've always thought you were a good guy, and I hate how my family is treating you. I don't want to be part of it. I thanked her for telling me and promised to keep her out of it. After she left, I just sat there for what felt like hours, replaying everything in my head. The long nights I spent working, the arguments about the prenup, Sarah's sudden change in attitude. It all made sense now. When I got home, I started going through our shared finances, looking for anything unusual. Sure enough, there were charges I didn't recognize. Restaurants, hotels, even a couple of jewelry stores. I haven't confronted Sarah yet, but I've started gathering evidence. I called my lawyer and told them everything. They advised me to stay calm and not make any rash decisions. But that's easier said than done. Right now, I'm trying to figure out my next move. This feels like betrayal on a level I never expected. I'm not sure what's going to happen next, but one thing's for sure. The prenup isn't going anywhere, and neither is my self-respect. If anyone has advice on how to handle this, I'm all ears. Thanks for sticking with me through all of this. Update 3. Hey everyone, it's Matt, back for, hopefully, the last time. This whole ordeal has been a wild mess, but I've finally made it through to the other side. And let me tell you, it feels damn good to have my life back. After finding out everything from Amy, who by the way is the real MVP here, I got my ducks in a row fast. My lawyer and I worked like a well-oiled machine. The evidence I had, her infidelity, the shady charges, and even her parents' involvement made the divorce process almost laughably easy. When I finally confronted Sarah, she didn't even try to deny it. She cried, played the victim, and threw out every excuse you could imagine. I felt so lonely while you were working all the time, she sobbed. You cared more about your job than me. I wasn't having it. I told her flat out, you don't get to blame me for your choices. I was busting my ass to give us a life most people dream of, and you threw it all away. At first, she tried to argue. Well, maybe if you'd paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. That one hit hard, but I didn't let it show. I just said, you didn't have to do anything. You made a choice, and now you get to live with the consequences. The look on her face when I told her I'd already filed for divorce was priceless. She tried to act shocked, like she couldn't believe I'd go through with it. Then she shifted gears, begging me to reconsider. We can fix this, Matt. We can go to counseling, start fresh, whatever it takes. I told her there was no fixing this. The trust was gone, and her actions spoke louder than any apology ever could. Now let's talk about the prenup. Oh, that beautiful, life-saving document. Thanks to the ironclad agreement her family insisted on back when we got married, Sarah walked away with nothing. Not a penny of my hard-earned money. No spousal support. No division of assets. Nothing. Add her infidelity to the mix, and she didn't even have a leg to stand on legally. Her parents, of course, were furious. Diane called me multiple times, leaving these long, ranting voicemails about how I was ruining Sarah's life and how I needed to be the bigger person. The nerve of these people, right? I didn't bother responding. My lawyer told me to keep everything documented just in case they tried anything, but thankfully, they backed off pretty quickly, once they realized they had no leverage. It wasn't long after that I found out the real reason they were so desperate to get rid of the prenup. Turns out Tom and Diane's financial situation wasn't as rosy as they pretended. Their business ventures had been bleeding money for years, and they were barely keeping their heads above water. That fancy lifestyle they flaunted? All smoke and mirrors. When Sarah moved back in with them, the cracks in their perfect image started to show. She went from living in our beautiful home to crashing in her childhood bedroom. Gone were the designer clothes, spa days, and expensive dinners. From what I've heard, they're all struggling to keep up appearances, but it's only a matter of time before the house of cards comes tumbling down. And let's not forget her other guy. The man she thought she'd ride off into the sunset with? Yeah, he ghosted her as soon as things started falling apart. Amy told me he was a serial dater who had no intention of settling down. He was just stringing Sarah along for fun, and when he realized she didn't have access to my money, he dipped. So there she was, jobless, penniless, and stuck with her parents, who couldn't even help her out like they used to. Karma, right? I thought that would be the end of it. But of course, Sarah couldn't let things go. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, she showed up at my office unannounced. My assistant tried to stop her, but Sarah pushed her way in. She looked rough. Her hair was a mess. She was wearing old, wrinkled clothes, and she had this desperate look in her eyes. Matt, she said, tears streaming down her face. I made a mistake. Please, I need you to forgive me. I leaned back in my chair and just looked at her for a moment. Part of me wanted to laugh at the audacity, but mostly, I just felt done. Sarah, we've been through this. You didn't just make a mistake. You made a series of choices that destroyed our marriage. Forgiveness doesn't fix that. She tried every tactic in the book. She apologized, blamed her parents, promised she'd change, and even hinted at wanting to rekindle things. We can start over, Matt. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. But there was no way I was going back. Sarah, you didn't just cheat on me. You planned to leave me while trying to take what I've worked for. That's not love, and it's definitely not something I can forgive. When she realized I wasn't budging, she got angry. You're going to regret this, Matt. You're going to end up alone, and you'll realize you pushed away the one person who really cared about you. I just shook my head and said, Sarah, you didn't care about me. You cared about the life I provided. Now you get to figure things out on your own. I called security to escort her out, and that was the last time I saw her. Since then, life has been a lot quieter. Amy and I still keep in touch. She apologized again for her family's behavior, but honestly, she didn't need to. She was the only one who had the guts to do the right thing, and I'll always be grateful for that. As for Sarah and her parents, I've heard through the grapevine that things are getting worse for them financially. Part of me feels bad for Amy because she's stuck in the middle, but for the rest of them, they made their bed, and now they get to lie in it. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's the importance of standing your ground. People will try to take advantage of you, manipulate you, and guilt you into doing what's best for them. But at the end of the day, you have to look out for yourself. To anyone out there dealing with toxic in-laws, a shady partner, or just feeling stuck in a situation that doesn't sit right with you, trust your gut and stand up for what's right. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Thanks again to everyone who's been following my story and offering advice. Your support has meant more to me than I can put into words. Here's to moving forward and never looking back.